She raised her head and looked at Xie Jingxing. For these words to be said so quickly, one think that the Qin emperor did not investigate the cause of it. Is he determined to make the crown prince's scapegoat?
Why?
Could it be that he does not want to catch the real murderer of his son? In Shen Miao's thoughts, even though she had already guessed this result, she did not expect it to come so quickly. After all, the death of a person was not a small matter. No matter what the Qin emperor would investigate, and Emperor Wen Hui and the other party would be in a deadlock for a period of time. Chapter 796. Xie Jingxing smiled. Naive. Shen Miao. It had been a long time since someone called her naive. One heard Xie Jingxing said, "The imperial family only cares about the result, and what the truth is not important, as it is impossible for Huang Fu Hao to come back from the dead." He played with the teacup in his hand and said, "The Qin kingdom lost a crown prince and a princess, but the Qin kingdom might have other suitable princes. It's just that the Qin kingdom's politics must be very messy because of this. Since the Qin country is wary of Ming Qi, naturally Ming Qi must pay the same price. No matter if the crown prince is a murderer or not, the crown prince must die." The smile on Xie Jingxing's lips was cold. Only with the crown prince's death would Ming Qi and Qin country be considered even. Shen Miao sucked in a breath of cold air. Xie Jingxing's words were indeed ruthless, but it also tore open the bright cloth covering the surface. Ming Qi and the Qin country were originally evenly matched in terms of national power, and now that the Qin country had lost a crown prince, one feared that the princes fighting for the throne would cause chaos in the court. If Ming Qi was fine, it would make people angry. No matter what, the first reaction of a person in a quagmire was not to think of a way to climb out, but to pull the person next to him and slide in together. The so-called alliance that shared weal and woe was nothing more than this. They were bound together by benefits and calculated carefully based on benefits. One feared that Emperor Wen Hui had already seen this point clearly, so very soon the crown prince would become the counterweight to balance this unfairness. Ming Qi had one more crown prince and erased the crown prince. No matter how reluctant he was for the sake of the world, he had to be willing. Shen Miao remained silent. Xie Jingxing smiled, killing two birds with one stone. "You have done well." Shen Miao said, "I am only responsible for thinking. You are the hero." This play was thought up by Shen Miao, and Xie Jingxing was responsible for perfecting it. Xie Jingxing had many people with different talents, and among them, calculating the different routes that the crown prince and Huang Fu Hao would take, the timing was accurate, and the acting was just right. All these were not easy to complete. Shen Miao thought that Xie Jingxing's contribution was the biggest. Xie Jingxing smiled and declined to comment. After talking for a while, Shen Miao's hair was dry, and she was so sleepy that she yawned twice. When Xie Jingxing saw this, he planned to leave. Before leaving, Shen Miao suddenly called out to him and hesitated before opening her mouth to ask, "Did Princess Rong Xian look for you recently?"
No.
Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "Then what do you plan to do?" Xie Jingxing did not even turn his head back as he flew out of the window and threw out these words, "Nothing." Shen Dongling and Wang Bai were locked up in the innermost room of the prison. One did not know if Emperor Wen Hui was doing it on purpose to show fairness, but he did not randomly capture people and did not touch the rest of the Wang family. But this did not mean that the situation was much better. The minister councilors Fu only had Wang Bai as its sole heir. If something happened to Wang Bai, the Wang family would be finished. The jailers who came and went did not give the two of them a good look. How many powerful people had been locked up in this prison? Once they lost their power, they would lose everything. Besides, the minister councilor was not a high-ranking official and was not worthy of being given a good look. Shen Dongling was extremely embarrassed. A few days ago, she was harboring the dream of a meteoric rise in the future, but did not think that there would be such an ending. Originally, when they were rich and comfortable, she and Wang Bai treated each other with respect and were harmonious. But once something happened, the astute Wang Bai and the equally astute Shen Dongling, those hidden cracks and contradictions were exposed. Wang Bai blamed Shen Dongling. After all, The idea of Pinxiang was Shen Dongling's, who knew that both of them would be buried in prison. Wang Bai was not a fool. Since the crown prince had not been rescued, how good would their reaction be? The most important thing was that the crown prince was the heir apparent, and there would be the empress who would run errands for him. Other than the money that the Wang family could not expose to the world, what else did they have? Chapter 797. Shen Dongling could only defend herself. How would she know that Huang Fu Hao would mysteriously die? This matter was a conspiracy. Someone wanted to scheme against the crown prince, but they also schemed against the two of them. Shen Dongling was innocent. Today the jailer came and brought them food that was different from the past. The food was very fresh, and there was even meat mixed in it. Shen Dongling was still a little happy. The food they had eaten in prison these days was often rotten, or it was dry and hard to eat. Suddenly seeing such a sumptuous meal, he was pleasantly surprised and asked, "Big brother, is this for us?" The jailer glanced at her and gave a strange smile, saying, "Yes, it is for you." Wang Bai suddenly realized something, and his expression became ugly. He asked, "Big brother, what is the meaning of this?" At least there is someone who understands. The jailer continued, "Finish this last meal and be on your way." The chopsticks in Shen Dongling's hand fell to the ground with a clatter, almost not daring to believe her ears. It was Wang Bai who fell on his butt to the ground as if he had already expected it. It was as if all his energy had been sucked out, and he could not stand up again. "Big brother, what is going on?" Shen Dongling suddenly became agitated, as if she could not believe this fact. Her voice became somewhat sharp as she asked, "When can we be released? We were wrongly accused? The assassination of the Qin crown prince really has nothing to do with us. We have been locked up for so long. Is the matter not clear yet? When can we be released home?" She spoke quickly and anxiously, as if this could dispel the fear in her heart. It was the first time Wang Bai saw Shen Dongling lose her composure like this. He looked at Shen Dongling in a daze and did not speak. The jailer's brows furrowed at Shen Dongling's words. He took 2 steps back before saying impatiently, "Not to mention you, even His Highness the Crown Prince has been convicted. How can you say you are innocent?" Wang Bai was startled and asked, "His Highness the Crown Prince has pleaded guilty?" The jailer gave a snort and said, "Isn't that so? Regardless of whether you are wrongly accused or not, it is your good fortune to be together with His Highness the Crown Prince. Furthermore," the jailer's smile was somewhat malicious, "even if you are innocent, the Wang family's illicit salt trade is not a small crime." Wang Bai's body trembled, and he asked with a trembling voice, "This? How do you know?" "How would I know?" The jailer waved his hands and impatiently said, "That is what the outside says." He took another look at Wang Bai and said, "I heard that when we sent people to raid the Wang family's gold and silver were carried out in chests, and it took them an entire afternoon. Since you've enjoyed riches and honor, you won't lose out in this life. Young Master Wang, don't think about anything else. Just eat this bowl of rice in peace and reincarnate into a good family in your next life." Shen Dongling's heart sank. If it was said that there was still a sliver of hope before, then once the matter of the illicit salt was revealed, then she and Wang Bai would really have no way out. Dongling felt that the Shen Tian Shen Ling Shen not Dong and Ling, and Shen, Wang's family would Ling Ling Shen, Shen Ling Ling Shen, Wang Ling Shen, Shi Ling Ling Shen, Wang Ling Ling, Wang Prince, Dong 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 Ling Ling Wang of Ling Shen. Dongling only felt that the sky and earth were spinning. She had tried every possible means to exchange marriage with Shen Yu and planned such a marriage for herself. Towards the Wang family, she was also extremely satisfied. Although the Wang clan couldn't be considered to be extremely powerful, with money, they didn't have to worry about food and clothing, and their days would only get better and better. But how did he end up in prison? How did his riches and honor vanish like smoke? She couldn't accept this. If she did not come up with this idea for Wang Bai, would they be able to avoid this calamity? Huang Fu Hao would not have died, the crown prince would not have been wrongly accused, and they would not have become innocent sacrifices. Why was she bewitched that day and wanted to scheme against Shen Miao? It was obvious that those who went against Shin Miao would not have a good ending, so why did one have to personally knock one's head until it bled? Chapter 798. Shin Miao? That's right, Shin Miao. Shin Miao must have done something behind the scenes for the matter to be in such a state. Shin Dongling suddenly had an idea and took off a bracelet from her wrist. Her jewelry was almost used up after she entered the prison, and this bracelet was given to her by Wang Foran on the day she married. It was extremely valuable and could almost buy a shop in a remote place. She stuffed the shop into the jailer's hands and said eagerly, "May trouble eldest brother to help me find my 5th younger sister and help me pass a message. Just say that I have something to say to her." She then earnestly said, "One's words are kind when one is about to die. Hope that eldest brother can help me one last time." She was born to be good-looking, and with such a delicate and pitiful posture, and with tears on her eyelashes, the jailer's heart softened a little. He took the bracelet and said, "Since that is the case, one will help you this time. But I am only responsible to pass the message and cannot guarantee if 5th Shin young lady will come or not." Shin Dongling quickly thanked him. Wang Bai sneered, and his expression was somewhat tired. One did not know if he was laughing at himself or Shin Dongling. "Could it be that you think that Shin Miao will come and save you?" "I do not know if she will come or not." Shin Dongling changed the weak look she had when she was facing the jailer, and her expression was somewhat ruthless. "If she is willing to save me and be humble, I am not afraid to give in to her. But if she does not have the heart to save me, then why would the first household of the Shin family be able to live on safe and sound? Since we are one family, naturally one should face difficulties and hardships together." Just as Shin Dongling thought, the jailer really passed her words to Shin Miao, but Shin Miao was very straightforward and directly interrupted the conversation, indicating that she was not willing to go. She even let Jingja seal a heavy pouch for the jailer. The entire residence of the Shin family was no longer there, and only the first household of the Shin family was still standing tall, like an iron wall in the Ding capital. 2 years ago, Shin Xian was demoted and chased out of the Ding capital, and one did not think that he would return after 2 years. Not only that, compared to 2 years ago, Shin Xian's attitude was even more unyielding and was no longer modest, but no one was able to grab hold of his weakness. Even Emperor Wen Hui had to be courteous to him. One was a prisoner, and the other was a military officer with great power. In any case, the jailer would not choose to offend a military officer for a prisoner. The jailer left. Shin Miao sat in front of the dressing mirror as Jingja combed her hair and asked, "This servant thought that young lady would go and meet 3rd young lady." Guyu glared at her. Why would young lady want to see her? After all, the 2nd and 3rd household of the Shin family have nothing to do with us. Besides, what they have committed is a capital offense. If Miss goes to see her for no reason, what if other people think too much and implicate Miss? Jingja stuck out her tongue and said, "Did young lady not see 2nd young lady and eldest young lady one last time?" Shin Dongling is not an ordinary person. Shin Miao listened to the two of them arguing and said, "I will not jump into a pit specially dug for me." "Dig a pit?" Jingja's expression suddenly changed. "Young lady is saying that 3rd young lady wants to harm young lady. One must always guard against others." Shin Miao said lightly. Among these daughters of the Shin residents, Shin Yu and Shin Qing were after all spoiled by their mother. Although they were vicious, their schemes were not very deep. Most likely it was because they were still young that some things could not be seen clearly. But Shin Dongling was different. Since young, Shin Dongling and Wan Yinyang were suppressed by Ren Wan Yun and her biological father. Shin Gui had an indifferent temperament. To survive in such an environment, Shin Dongling's will was more tenacious than the average person. She was able to hide in the courtyard for more than 10 years, and let Ren Wanyan take her lightly was enough to prove this point. Towards such an enemy, Shin Miao did not dare to look at it clearly. If Shin Yu and Shin Qing were to suffer a heavy blow, she would be the first to panic, but Shin Dongling would still grasp the last opportunity to scheme. As long as she did not die, she would be able to scheme for what she wanted at the last moment. Chapter 799. Seeing how Shen Dongling treated her biological father so coldly, Shen Miao did not think that Shen Dongling would have any feelings for her. Gu Yu also rambled on. One do not know what she is thinking in her heart. Since she is already in prison, one fear that she would not be able to play any tricks. No need to worry. As long as I do not go, there will not be any mistakes. Shen Miao comforted them. If she wants to ask me for help, I would not be able to do it, and it would be useless even if I go. If she wants to pull me into the water, I would not even see her, so naturally there is no other way. Jingzhen nodded her head repeatedly. Correct. It is correct not to go. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down, but there was one thing that she found strange. The Crown Prince and Wang Bai were naturally imprisoned because of Huang Fuhao's matter, but Emperor Wen Hui's decision to convict them spread so quickly. Other than the Qin Emperor's urging, one feared that it was related to the news of the illicit salt trade. Emperor Wen Hui could not tolerate people who sought wealth under his eyelids, even if it was his own son. The Qin Emperor's coercion and Emperor Wen Hui's anger was the reason why the decision was spread so quickly. It was just that. How did the news of the illicit salt spread out? Was it done by Xie Jingxing? She held her cheeks as she thought hard. In the palace, outside the Yang Xian Hall, the Empress had been kneeling in the courtyard for an entire day. He had been kneeling since dawn. The servants tried to persuade him, but to no avail. It was already afternoon. Japan was cold in winter, and the ground was covered with ice. After kneeling for a whole day, without a cushion to support his knees, it was easy for his knees to catch a cold. He was afraid that his body was stiff. The sun was shining in the sky, and even though there were no problems with the Empress body on normal days, at this moment she was sweating profusely. She clenched her teeth and did not say a word as she silently knelt and looked as if she was going to fall in the next moment. The palace maid by her side advised, "Your ladyship, it is better to return first. One fear that His Majesty is busy today, so your ladyship need not hurt your body. It is not good to catch a cold in this cold weather." "Then Gong wanna kneel," the Empress said in a firm tone. "Kneel until His Majesty changes his mind." When the eunuch passed the Empress' words to Emperor Wen Hui's ears in the study, Emperor Wen Hui flew into a rage and said, "Let her kneel. Let her kneel. She wants me to change my mind and make her give up." Ever since she knew that the Crown Prince's conviction document was out, the Empress wanted to personally see Emperor Wen Hui to plead for leniency, but Emperor Wen Hui did not even want to see her. The Empress was worried about the Crown Prince but was helpless and could only kneel in the courtyard outside the Yang Xian Palace Hall, thinking that after kneeling for a long time, Emperor Wen Hui would eventually let her in because of his face. The Empress knew that the Crown Prince had committed a big mistake. If one were to talk about Huang Fuhao's matter, a discerning person would be able to see that there was something fishy about it, and because of this Emperor Wen Hui's heart still protected this son. The matter of trading illicit salt with the Wang family had wiped away the last bit of guilt in Emperor Wen Hui's heart. Now that Emperor Wen Hui was angry and disgusted with the Crown Prince, how could he listen to the Empress' advice? The Empress also had no other way. After being husband and wife with Emperor Wen Hui for so many years, she knew clearly what Emperor Wen Hui was thinking in his heart, but the Crown Prince was her only son. For this only son, she was willing to kneel for a lifetime, so what was one day? Just as they were in a deadlock, one heard a chuckle from behind, and someone walked over enchanting. She was wearing a peach-red gold silk dress, and her clothes were bright and glowed with glory. She looked at the Empress and said, "Why is older sister kneeling here?" Scared younger sister so much that one thought that older sister would give such a big bow to younger sister. In the future, do not make such a joke again. The Empress gritted her teeth as she looked at her with hatred. This person was Consort Su Xian. To tell the truth, how could the matter of the Crown Prince's illicit salt trade suddenly spread out? The Empress suspected that Prince Zhou and Prince Jing had something to do with it. After the Crown Prince's death, the two brothers would have one less formidable enemy. It was just that there was no evidence, so she could not say anything. But Consort Su Xian had the ability to add fuel to the fire. Consort Su Xian smiled prettily and asked, "Why is older sister not going in?" Could it be that you have done something wrong and are kneeling to His Majesty for forgiveness? Why not younger sister go in and plead for older sister? Chapter 800. Consort Su Xian smiled prettily and asked, "Why is older sister not going in? Could it be that you have done something wrong and are kneeling to ask His Majesty for forgiveness? Why not younger sister go in and plead for older sister?" The Empress gritted her teeth. No need. In the previous dynasty's battles, it often involved the women in the inner palace. When Prince Zhou's faction and the Crown Prince's faction fought, it not only represented the Dragon Throne but also the people behind them. If the Crown Prince were to fall, how long would the Empress' position last? There would be a day when Emperor Wen Hui would grow old, and if Prince Zhou were to sit on the Dragon Throne, what kind of ending would the Empress have? There were countless of dirty tricks in an official's residence, and it was even more so in the inner palace. If one was not careful, one would lose one's life and one's family would be implicated. How could one not be careful in their lives? Consort Su Xian smiled. If older sister is not willing, younger sister will not force. But younger sister still have things to say to His Majesty and will not disturb older sister's interest. She covered her mouth and laughed before sending someone to inform Emperor Wen Hui. The Empress could not wait to scratch Consort Su Xian's face. The Empress could almost guess what Consort Su Xian would say if she went in now. It was nothing more than adding oil to the fire. Emperor Wen Hui had always listened to Consort Su Xian's words, and one fear that his anger towards the Crown Prince would be even higher. But she was unable to stop Consort Su Xian. Consort Su Xian was about to go in when she saw a person rushing over from outside. Upon seeing Consort Su Xian, she said apologetically, "Consort Xian, His Highness Prince Rue is outside and is requesting to see His Majesty." Prince Rue? Consort Su Xian and the Empress were startled at the same time. What was Prince Rue doing here at this time? Even though Consort Su Xian was usually arrogant and willful, it was not that she did not know what was going on. That arrogance was just a small temper towards Emperor Wen Hui, but she dared not be careless in big matters. She immediately said, "Then I will come back later." The Empress was after all older than Consort Su Xian by a few years and had seen more of the court's matters. Her heart sank. Prince Rue did not come earlier or later, but came when the Crown Prince met with an accident and Emperor Wen Hui had issued the letter of conviction. One fear that his intentions were not good. The close attendant by Emperor Wen Hui's side quickly came out and spoke a few words to the person who reported before the person went out. The Empress and Consort Su Xian, one was kneeling and one was standing when one saw a young male dressed in purple walking in. He wore half a silver mask and had a leisurely expression. The Empress felt ashamed and angry for no reason. As the Empress of a country, she was seen in such a sorry state by an outsider. Consort Su Xian looked at the other's face and was slightly dazed. Some people were born very strange. It was hard to see what their appearance was like, but their noble and elegant aura was enough to make people admire them. It was as though as long as he stood there, the gazes of others would fall on him. Prince Rue walked past the Empress and only glanced at her. There was not much meaning in his eyes, and his footsteps did not stop, as if he did not see the mother of the country kneeling in front of the hall. But this was definitely not because he understood the Empress, so he pretended not to know. Even though Prince Rue did not reveal any expression, the Empress felt that the other party was just too lazy to look, and it was the disdain and contempt that was revealed from the bottom of his heart. She was mortified. In the study, Emperor Wen Hui was sitting in front of a table. His performance was light and steady, as if the person who was in a rage in the study was not him. It was just that his back was somewhat stiff. The purple-clad youth walked in from outside and lazily called him Your Majesty as a greeting. After that he walked to the opposite of him and sat down. He sat casually, as if Emperor Wen Hui was the guest, and there was no trace of respect or worship in his eyes. That look made Emperor Wen Hui have a feeling that in front of this young man, he did not count as anything. Chapter 801. This thought only lasted for a short moment before Emperor Wenhui recovered to his senses and smiled as he looked at Prince Rue. These days Zhan is very busy, and did not ask if Prince Rue is used to living here. There was some closeness in these words. Now that the Qin country had a bad attitude towards the Ming Qi, if the Great Liang had other thoughts at this time, the Ming Qi would really be in a dilemma. Thus Emperor Wenhui did not want to make things too bad with the Great Liang. It was good to admit weakness or lower one's head. As long as one could pass this hurdle in front of them, anything else could be discussed in the future. That was why he rushed to please Prince Rue. If the commoners of the Ming Qi saw Emperor Wenhui like this, one feared that they would scoff. Prince Rue smiled lazily. Thanks to your majesty's blessings, this prince is living well, but one heard that your majesty is not well these few days. Emperor Wenhui's heart jumped, but did not show it at all on his face. He only shook his head and smiled bitterly. One cannot teach one's son properly and let Prince Rue see a joke. One cannot blame your majesty. Prince Rue said, after all your majesty has 9 sons. One could not hear any joy or anger in his tone, but Emperor Qin is pitiful. To come to the Ming Qi to pay tribute, the crown prince and princess both died here. It is really an unexpected disaster. Emperor Wenhui's smile became somewhat awkward. Prince Rue was not wrong. The Qin emperor kept requesting the crown prince to pay with his life because he wanted to pursue balance, but there was another reason. 2 countries came to pay tribute, but Prince Rue of the Great Liang was not harmed at all, but the crown prince and princess of the Qin country died. What was going on? Was the Ming Qi deliberately targeting their Qin country? Or was it to show that the Qin country was weak and could not even protect the crown prince and princess? In any case, this was a matter that made the Qin country lose face, and Emperor Qin was most annoyed by this. So even if the crown prince paid with his life, the vanity of a superior would make Emperor Qin hate the Ming Qi for a period of time. He said, Zhen will also deal with this matter as soon as possible. Prince Rue smiled. Emperor Qin would not give up so easily. Emperor Wenhui's breath was stuck in his chest. His words were tactful, and he did not want to delve into this topic with the other party, but he did not know if Prince Rue did not understand it or what, but he used this matter to block his heart, and even said it without giving any face. Of course Emperor Wenhui would not think that Prince Rue was so stupid that he could not read the situation, so Prince Rue was doing it on purpose to disgust him. Emperor Wenhui really wanted to brush his sleeves and leave like how he treated his disobedient courtiers or fly into a rage. Unfortunately, Prince Rue was not one of his courtiers. Even though he was a prince of first rank, in some aspects, he was more ferocious than the emperor. Emperor Wenhui could only stiffly change the topic and asked, but one do not know why Prince Rue came to look for Zhen today. Prince Rue did not speak and only bent a finger to knock on the table. In the silence, Emperor Wenhui's heart was also grabbed by that finger that was knocking on the table. He suddenly thought that Prince Rue had picked this time to come over. Could it be that he wanted to talk to him about something important? If Prince Rue were to mention the city at the border of the Great Liang and Ming Qi at this time, how could Emperor Wenhui reject it? His spine was initially stiff, but now was drenched in cold sweat. The other party was so silent, but it unknowingly made him feel a great weight. After a moment, Prince Rue's finger that was knocking on the table paused, and he casually said, "It is for this prince's lifelong event."
What?
Upon hearing these words, Emperor Wenhui instinctively froze for a moment, and before he could understand, he heard Prince Rue's flat voice. Imperial older brother had always hoped that this prince would get married as soon as possible. This time over to the Ming Qi, he instructed this prince to bring my princess back. This prince also has this intention. Chapter 802. This time Emperor Wenhui understood. Prince Rue wanted to find a female in Ming Qi.
But why?
Emperor Wenhui instinctively felt that it was somewhat strange, and guessed that there was a conspiracy, but he could not show it. He immediately revealed a magnanimous smile and said, "So it is like this. No matter what, heroes have a weakness for the charms of beauties. Prince Rue is a young talent and naturally should have a beautiful wife like a flower. One just do not know which family's young lady Prince Rui fancies? Prince Rui stared at him, and a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes suddenly burst into a smile. Emperor Wenhui was surprised for a moment before he heard that youth lightly speaking. Shun family, Shun Miao. Emperor Wenhui could not laugh anymore. His heart was trembling with anger and wished that someone could drag Prince Rui down to behead him, but he could not. But he finally could not maintain the friendly smile on his face, and his expression was extremely stiff. He asked in a dry voice, "Who did you say?" "The daughter of the formidable great general." Prince Rui said, "Your Majesty, do not remember? Did the crown prince not want to marry her as a souffle a few days ago? To actually force one to this extent. Too much bullying." Many thoughts appeared in Emperor Wenhui's mind in a split second, and at the end, he could not help but sneer. This Prince Rui looked lazy and did not care about anything. He did not even put the alliance between Ming-Chi and the Qin country in his eyes, and only minded his own business every day. So, he was actually a pig pretending to eat the tiger, and still had a trick up his sleeves. Thinking about marrying the daughter of the formidable great general, was he marrying Xin Miao or the Xin family's military power? Emperor Wenhui knew that to the Great Liang, the Xin family's military power was nothing, as the Great Liang had many outstanding officers and soldiers. But to Ming-Chi, most of the outstanding officers were dismissed by him in the early years, and now the Xie family was in decline, so the only one that could support the prestige of Ming-Chi was the Xin family. Without the Shun family and Ming-Chi, it was like a tiger without its claws. If one were to deal with the Great Liang, one feared that one would not even be able to struggle for a few minutes before being eaten up cleanly. What a good Prince Rui. What a good Great Liang. Emperor Wenhui forced out a smile. Prince Rui has good foresight, but everyone knows that General Xin loves his daughter. If Prince Rui insisted on marrying Xin Miao, one feared that General Shun would love his young daughter and would not be willing for her to marry to the Great Liang. What is so difficult about this? Prince Rui played with a thumb ring in his hand and casually said, "If General Shun is not willing, is to marry." Rui was Wenhui. Prince Rui's words continued to pass into his ears. The Great Liang and Ming-Chi are currently considered friendly. Your Majesty will not even give this prince this favor, right? He stretched his body and said lightly, "If that's the case, it's time for me to report to my brother about the city." Emperor Wenhui had lived for a lifetime and finally knew what was the feeling of trembling with anger. The Xin family was a piece of fat meat, and Prince Rui not only wanted to snatch this piece of fat meat, he also wanted the host family to offer the fat meat with both hands. If he really gave this imperial edict, one feared that even if Xin Xian stayed in Ming-Chi in the future due to his loyalty, he would still have resentment towards him. It was he who gave the imperial edict for Xin Miao to marry far away. If he was not willing to give an imperial edict, Emperor Wenhui looked at the man in front of him. He was wearing a mask, and one could not see what expression he had, but he felt that under this person's lazy appearance, there was an extremely powerful means. Under the precarious situation of the Ming-Chi and Qin countries' alliance, it was not a wise move to rashly go against the Great Liang. Prince Rui gave him a difficult problem, and there was no answer to this difficult problem, because any answer would be wrong. The one who would suffer would be him. That man's gaze landed on Emperor Wenhui, like a cat playing with a mouse in its claws. He lazily asked, "Has your Majesty thought it through?" Chapter 803. Emperor Wenhui stifled his anger. Ever since he ascended to the throne, he had dealt with numerous troublesome matters, but there was not once that made one feel so aggrieved. There was no one who dared to be so rude and presumptuous to him. For the first time in his life, Emperor Wenhui started to regret that he should not have concentrated his military power to deal with the aristocratic families. If Ming-Chi had a few more valiant generals like Xin Xian, would they not need to be so submissive in front of the Great Liang? But how could there be medicine for regret in this world? When Prince Rui saw that he did not reply, he smiled and stood up. "This prince understands." He made a move to leave. "Wait." Emperor Wenhui called out to him. Prince Rui stood still and smiled. "Your Majesty must have thought it through. As the ruler of a country, One's words carry enormous weight. Since Ming Qi and the Great Liang are on good terms, Zhen naturally also have the beauty of helping others. Emperor Wen Hui's smile was uglier than crying as he said, if the young lady of the Shin family were to marry to Prince Rui, it would be the fortune of the young lady of the Shin family, and Zhen would be happy to see it happen. Don't worry, I will draft an edict today, and in a few days I will announce it. He squatted for a while, and with great difficulty, spat out a few words from his mouth about the city. Just take it as a gift to His Majesty. Lord Rui smiled and left in a good mood. After Prince Rui left, Emperor Wen Hui collapsed on the chair and beads of perspiration appeared on his forehead, but his face was flushed red. Anger, shame, humiliation, and resentment interweaved on his face. However, he was powerless to change this. This was perhaps the most embarrassing thing in the world. He was the ruler of a country, the chosen one, but he had no choice but to admit his helplessness. Eunuch Gao, who was standing at the side, didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Seeing the emperor being forced into such a state with his own eyes, it was only natural for a servant to be frightened. Bring Zhen's pen and paper over. Emperor Wen Hui suddenly said after a moment. Eunuch Gao hurriedly agreed. Emperor Wen Hui's gaze was heavy. Even though Prince Rui said that the matter of the city would not be mentioned for the time being, it was a temporary stability that was exchanged with the Shen family's marriage. No one knew how long the stability would last. The most important thing was that after Shen Miao married to Prince Rui, even though Shen Xian was still a Ming Qi person, Emperor Wen Hui no longer dared to trust Shen Xian. Even though he suppressed Shen Xian previously, it was because he was afraid that Shen Xian's meritorious service would overshadow the emperor, but the formidable great general had been loyal for generations, and Emperor Wen Hui believed in Shen Xian's loyalty. But his daughter was in the Great Liang, and if the Great Liang used Shen Miao as leverage to threaten Shen Xian, who knew what kind of things Shen Xian would do? Shen Xian, this chess piece was crippled and Ming Qi's situation would be even more difficult. In order to guard against the Great Liang, Ming Qi must quickly restore the alliance relationship with the Qin country. With both countries working together, they would be able to contend against the Great Liang. The Qin country was still angry at the Ming Qi because of Huang Fu Hao and Princess Ming'an, so the Ming Qi must show sincerity. The crown prince must die. Emperor Wen Hui closed his eyes. Out of everyone's expectations, Emperor Wen Hui's letter of conviction to the crown prince came so quickly and urgently that no one had time to think clearly. The crown prince committed suicide in prison. Whether it was suicide or not, a discerning person could see it, but it was to preserve the crown prince's reputation. One could not let the dignified crown prince end up like a prisoner in the marketplace and be beheaded in front of everyone. Moreover, it was because of the crime of assassinating another country's crown prince. One feared that the prestige of the Ming Qi's imperial family would be lost the next day. The commoners were always easy to fool, but the officials were well versed in this. Who would know if the crown prince committed suicide or not? The imperial family always liked to find a good reason for themselves, even if they were dirty. When the news of the crown prince's suicide was spread, the Empress seemed to have made a ruckus before falling seriously ill and did not step out of the Kuan-Ning palace to recuperate. Chapter 804. All the concubines in the inner palace were in danger. How could the Empress be seriously ill? It was because the crown prince had fallen. With the crown prince falling, the Empress would have no one to rely on for the rest of her life, and it was hard to say if she could still sit on this position. The Empress had lost her beloved son, and one feared that she would hold a grudge against Emperor Wen Hui. Naturally, Emperor Wen Hui had to be on guard. Only they themselves knew if it was because of illness that they did not leave the house or if they were under house arrest. If the Empress also fell, who would be the next master in the 6 palaces? It seemed that Consort Su Xian had the highest chance of winning. Emperor Wen Hui doted on Consort Su Xian, and Consort Su Xian had 2 princes' sons. The Prince Zhou and Prince Jing brothers were fighting to the death with Prince Li's faction, but Prince Li did not have a favored consort mother. Prince Zhou and Prince Jing could be considered as having the right time, place, and people. Thus the concubines were very careful in their conduct. At this juncture, one could not let others catch hold of their weakness, and if one was careless, one would be used as a gun, and it would not be good. In Huangfu Hao's matter, other than the crown prince and the empress who were implicated, all the other related people were implicated. The one who was implicated the most was the residence of the Minister of Land. That day it was the young Master Wang of the Minister of Land's residence who requested to taste incense, and he even brought along his wife, who knew that Huangfu Hao's blood would splatter all over Yifeng Pavilion and Wang Bai, and Xin Dongling would definitely not be able to escape. But this was not the reason why they were convicted. The Minister of Land was found to be in the business of trading illicit salt. Trading illicit salt was a big crime, and the entire Wang residence would be implicated. Wang Bai and Xin Dongling were sentenced to be beheaded, and the rest of the Wang family's males were exiled, and the females were sent to the border as military prostitutes. Emperor Wen Hui's action was seen by a discerning person that this time he was quite angry, as if he had been provoked and was deliberately taking it out on others. But the emperor's mind was something that one could not fathom. Even though the officials were puzzled, they were only following orders. Shun Miao was drinking tea as she listened to Jingja talk about the things that happened in the past few days. Luo Tan, who was by her side, kept stuffing snowflake sweets into her mouth. The snowflake sweets were brought in from Tsongyang, and it was said that it was made by a famous pastry chef in the Great Liang. Shun Miao did not pay attention but was discovered by Luo Tan. After Luo Tan ate it, she was pleasantly surprised and asked Shun Miao where she bought it from. Shun Miao could only stammer and reply casually. Crown Prince Qin's matter has caused quite a stir. As Luo Tan ate, she said, so many people have been buried with him. Even a crown prince wouldn't be enough. At the end of her sentence, her voice became softer, as if she was afraid that the walls might be eavesdropping. Shun Miao gently smiled and declined to comment, but her heart was shocked by Emperor Wen Hui's ruthlessness and decisiveness. Indeed, like father, like son. In the past, when Fu Xiaoyi wanted to eradicate the Shin family, he did not care about Fu Ming and Wan Yu's life and death. At that time, she was thinking, how could there be such a heartless person in the world? Now it seemed that Fu Xiaoyi's actions were exactly the same as Emperor Wen Hui's. In the eyes of the Fu family, love, or friendship were all unreliable. Only power was what they chased after their entire life. In order to secure this position, sacrificing one son was nothing. Anyway, there would be other women who would bear children for them. This was most likely the Fu family's innate unrighteousness. Luo Tan looked at the small amount of snowflake sweets on the plate and counted with her fingers. Gu Mu and Gu Fu have eaten, older brother Qiu has also eaten, and only older brother Ling has not eaten. How about leaving this for older brother Ling? She looked at Shun Miao. Naturally, Shun Miao would not fuss over a mouthful and nodded her head. It would be good if you could remember where you bought the snowflake sweets from. Luo Tan sighed and said with some regret, I have eaten all the pastries in the Shaochun city and also ate the pastries in the Ding capital. This is the first time I have eaten such delicious snowflake sweets. Even though you do not remember clearly, I plan to personally send someone to search tomorrow and must find the shop. Chapter 805. Shun Miao was speechless. This was made by the Great Liang's imperial chef, and even if Luo Tan were to turn the entire Ding capital upside down, one feared that she would not be able to find the shop. Shun Miao was somewhat regretful. At that time, she should not have said shop, and it would be better to say it was a small stall. Luo Tan said again, older brother Ling also likes to eat pastries and would definitely like this. Finishing, she thought of something and said, but these few days older brother Ling is somewhat strange. Shun Miao asked, what is it? Her daily concerns were not on this, so she really did not know if there were any changes in Luo Ling other than going to the Ministry of War. He would not come out much after returning to the residence and just practice martial arts in the courtyard. Luo Tan propped her chin up and said, older brother Ling was not one who was so harsh on himself in the past. Moreover, these few days when I look for him to talk, He did not have a good mood, as if he had suffered a blow. Luo Tan looked at Shen Miao. Biao, youngest sister, you are smart. Do you know what is wrong with him? Shen Miao said, I do not follow him all the time, so how would I know what he is thinking about? Seeing Luo Tan's worried look, she comforted her. Do not worry. Most likely it is nearing the end of the year, and the Ministry of War will be very busy. It will be better after this period of time. Luo Tan nodded her head, and just as she was speaking, she saw Xin Xiao and Luo Tan walking in one after another. Seeing both of them in the main hall, Luo Tan called out, Older brother Qiao, older brother Ling, come over to eat snowflake sweets. Luo Ling entered the room and first looked at Xin Miao. Xin Miao was looking at Xin Xiao with a smile, and his eyes could not help but darken as he walked to one side and sat down. Xin Xiao unceremoniously grabbed a piece of snowflake sweets and stuffed it into his mouth. Why are both of you so free today? Luo Tan was laughing and joking with Xin Xiao when she heard the servant outside announcing that Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan had returned. Xin Xiao said, just nice. Father and mother have returned, and it is time for us to eat. Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan walked in from outside, but this time, even the most carefree Luo Tan also felt that something was wrong. Shen Xian's face was livid, and his expression was very ugly, while Luo Shuiyan also had an angry look. Usually, even if there were unsatisfactory matters outside, Shen Xian and wife would not show it in front of the children. Moreover, both of them were naturally open-minded, and there were very few things that could anger them. But looking at him today, he was clearly furious. The manservant beside Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan did not even dare to breathe loudly. He lowered his head and retreated. Luo Tan and Luo Ling were, after all, cousins. Thus, at this moment, she had some doubts in her heart, but it was not good to ask. Xin Xiao wanted to ask, but seeing his father's expression of killing whoever asked, he hesitated and did not dare to open his mouth. Finally, it was Shen Miao who took the initiative to open her mouth. She looked at Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan and said with a smile, Why does father and mother look unhappy? Is there something not going well outside? When Shen Miao opened her mouth, Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan looked at Shen Miao at the same time. Shen Xian's eyes were filled with remorse, anger, and grievance, while Luo Shuiyan's eyes were filled with deep guilt and helplessness. Shen Miao's heart thumped, but she quickly understood that for Shen Xian and wife to reveal such an expression, it was most likely related to her. Luo Shuiyan took a deep breath and smiled. It's nothing. It's just some matters regarding the imperial court. Jiao Jiao must be hungry. Let's eat first. It was just that the smile was forced. Even Luo Tan's gaze was solemn. What matter was so serious that Shen Xian and wife, who were always straightforward and fearless, had to hide it. This matter was already so thorny to such a stage. Shen Miao did not speak and did not answer yes or no. She only looked at Shen Xian and wife. Her attitude clearly indicated that she wanted an explanation. She did not believe Luo Shuiyan's explanation at all. Xin Xiao was in a trance and seemed to see Shen Miao from a few years ago. At that time, Shen Miao was still arrogant and was not as close to them as she was now, and was very close to the second and third household. Every time she asked for something from Shen Xian, she would stand in front of them without saying a word and was extremely stubborn. Actually, from the past to now, Shen Miao seemed to have changed a lot, but some habits in her bones had not changed. Shen Xian said, Jiao Jiao, be obedient. It was rare for him to be so strict with Shen Miao. If it was in the past, Shen Miao would have cried. Luo Ling looked at her with some worry. Shen Miao's expression did not change and still had an indifferent look. She said, Why did father and mother not tell me the truth? If I am also unable to solve it, at least I can share some of the burden. If I am able to solve it, it would be better. To hide the matter alone, it would seem estranged. I am not a little child. I am the same as eldest brother, a member of a Shen family. Shen Xian's lips moved, but he still did not speak. Shen Miao looked at him with a pair of eyes as clear as a stream. Under such a gaze, one could not help but tell her the truth. She said, Moreover, This matter is related to me, right? Luo Shuiyan was suddenly shocked. Luo Tan and Luo Ling looked at Shen Miao in surprise, and Shen Qiu also had a puzzled look. When Shen Xian heard that, he looked at Shen Miao for a while and finally sighed deeply before smiling bitterly. During the court today, His Majesty sent down an imperial edict to bestow marriage to you, he said with difficulty, to Prince Rui. Chapter 806. When the words were said, the room suddenly became silent. Luo Shuiyan did not dare to look at Shen Miao's eyes, and Shen Xian's voice revealed a deep exhaustion. Luo Ling was stunned and Luo Tan's mouth was wide open, but it was Shen Qiu who slammed the table and stood up. What does this matter? The calmest one was Shen Miao. But even though she looked calm on the surface, there were no waves in her heart. She had long thought of Xie Jingxing's move, but she did not think that Xie Jingxing would dare to do it so blatantly. Wait, how did he let Emperor Wenhui take the initiative to decree the marriage? Shen Miao was thinking about this, but Shen Qiu could not wait to stand up and anxiously said, "What kind of person is Prince Rui? Younger sister is a Ming Qi's young lady. How can she marry someone from the Great Liang? Is the Emperor crazy?" Qiu Luo Shuiyan glared at him. "Be careful with your words. The walls have ears, and it was possible that the heavenly family had spies everywhere." Shen Qiu was so angry that he actually said such disgraceful words. Shen Qiu suddenly shut up and looked at Shen Miao before scratching his ears and cheeks. No matter what, younger sister cannot marry that nuisance Prince Rui. Prince Rui, why is this name so familiar? A light flashed in his mind, and he suddenly clapped his hands. So it is that person. I was wondering why the dignified prince of the Great Liang would take the initiative to greet me. So it was because of younger sister. Hateful. Shen Xian frowned when he heard it and asked, "You have seen Prince Rui before?" "The last time Biao younger brother and I met him on the way back to the residence. He even invited me to the residence of Prince Rui to compete." Shen Qiu said angrily, "If I knew that he had such thoughts, I would have cut off the horse's leg and let him fall to his death." Shen Miao. Luo Ling was also surprised for a moment before thinking of something and looked toward Shen Miao. Shen Miao was baffled by Luo Ling's complicated gaze and did not have the mood to ask further. She only asked Shen Xian, "This is the imperial decree issued by His Majesty? Why did His Majesty suddenly decree a marriage for me?" If one were to say that there were many marriageable young ladies in the Great Liang, there were a few princesses in the imperial family, and there were also quite a number of Junju. It was true that Shen Miao knew that this was Xie Jingxing's idea, but she still wanted to inquire, how did Xie Jingxing manage to convince Emperor Wenhui? Shen Xian looked at Shen Miao with deep pain in his heart and paused for a moment before sighing. "Jiao Jiao, it is father who is incompetent." He then slowly narrated the events of today. So when he was in court today, Emperor Wenhui had finished handling some court matters, and when he was about to leave the court, he suddenly changed the topic and mentioned that Prince Rui of the Great Liang had the intention to marry a Wangfei from Ming Qi and return to the country. Some of the courtiers were excited, and some were uneasy. Those who loved their daughters naturally did not wish for their daughters to marry far away, while those who wholeheartedly wanted to climb up hoped that their daughters would marry Prince Rui, at least to be a Wangfei. Emperor Wenhui did not give everyone a chance to think and directly bestowed marriage. And the young lady who was bestowed the marriage was the daughter of the formidable great general Shen Xian, Shen Miao. Everyone was stunned. Everyone knew that Shen Miao was the pearl in Shen Xian's palm, and if Shen Miao was to marry to the Great Liang, one feared that Shen Xian would not be willing. And now that the Ming Qi needed Shen Xian, why would Emperor Wenhui find trouble with Shen Xian at this time? Even if those courtiers were as cunning as foxes, this time they were unable to see through the emperor's heart. Shen Xian naturally had a stomach full of anger and could not wait to pull out a knife to chop the throne room. He could bear all kinds of grievances, but he could not let his daughter suffer any grievances. Moreover, this time Emperor Wenhui did not even discuss with him and directly bestowed the marriage for Shen Miao. This meant that the Shen family had no chance to object at all. If they were to object, then it would be defying the imperial edict and the entire Shin family would die together. One fear that Shin Miao would not be willing. Chapter 807. At the same time, Shin Xian's heart was very puzzled. A few days ago, Emperor Wen Hui wanted to marry Shin Miao to the crown prince. Even though he had ulterior motives, but in such a short period of time, he wanted to marry Shin Miao to the prince of the Great Liang. After the court, Emperor Wen Hui called out to Shin Xian and did not let him leave first. Instead, he brought Shin Xian to the imperial study and had a long talk with him. This time it was the truth behind the bestowal of marriage to Shin Miao. Thus Shin Xian knew that it was Prince Rui's intention to marry Shin Miao to Prince Rui, and Prince Rui used the Ming-Chi's border city to threaten Emperor Wen Hui to make this decision. It was said to be the Ming-Chi's border city, but the meaning behind it was the entire land of Ming-Chi. Emperor Wen Hui was helpless and had no choice but to agree to this request. At the end, Emperor Wen Hui said to Shin Xian, "Zhan is the master of Ming-Chi and cannot watch helplessly and ignore the lives of the common people. So, General Shin, this time will plead young Lady Shen to be wronged and exchange her life for the safety of the common people." If young Lady Shen knew about it, she would understand Zhen's decision. A subject should listen to the orders of a monarch. Furthermore, the monarch in front of him was explaining the reason and apologizing so sincerely. If it was in the past, Shin Xian would definitely understand and even feel a little grateful. But when Emperor Wen Hui said to her, using one person to exchange for the safety of the common people of the world, Shin Xian's heart felt a trace of coldness. He even felt that the king in front of him, whom he had been loyal to for a lifetime, was actually a little hypocritical. The people of the world, Shin Xian's daughter was also one of the people of the world. Why should his daughter be the one to be sacrificed? In this lifetime, he had spent most of his life in military campaigns and sacrificed most of his life for Ming-Chi. He could even sacrifice his life at any time to protect the common people under the heavens. But if he could not even protect his own daughter, what kind of father was he? He was sacrificed, and now it was his daughter's turn to be sacrificed? Shin Xian did not even hear what Emperor Wen Hui said after that. Most likely he was talking about what Emperor Wen Hui would gift to Shin Miao when she got married, so that she would be more glorious. But in Shin Xian's ears, he felt that it was extremely ironic. No matter how selfless a person was, his heart would still be biased towards his loved ones. Especially Shin Xian. He did not bring his daughter along with him for the past few decades, causing Shin Miao to be estranged from both husband and wife. That was what he deserved. Afterwards, it was not easy for the heavens to pity them, and Shin Miao got closer to them, but Shin Miao's temperament had changed a lot, as if she had grown up overnight. Shin Xian saw this and felt pain in his heart. Shin Miao was a little flower that was carefully tended to in the residence, but now this flower had unknowingly grown into a strong tree. To grow so fast, she had lost a lot of things. He was already feeling guilty toward Shin Miao, and now with this imperial edict, Shin Xian really did not have the face to face Shin Miao. When Shin Xian finished his long speech, everyone in the room was silent, and Shin Qiu did not speak anymore. Emperor Wen Hui had already said it to this point. What else could he do? But was he going to watch Shin Miao get married? It seemed to be too cruel to Shin Miao. Shin Qiu did not dare to think about living with a man whom she had never seen in person, who she did not know what his temperament was like, and whom she could not say that she liked. Shin Miao said, "So it is like this." Her expression was calm, as if she was not affected in the slightest. Everyone then discovered that from knowing about the imperial edict till now, Shin Miao did not reveal a trace of surprise. Luo Shuiyan was afraid that she would suffocate and said, "Jiao Jiao, you do not need to keep it in your heart. The matter has not been decided. Mother need not coax me. The imperial edict is already given, and one cannot defy it." Shen Miao smiled. Moreover, it is not a bad thing to marry to Prince Rui. As a Wangfei, one would not have to worry about food and clothing. Looking at Prince Rui's demeanor at the beginning, even though one could not see his face, one would think that he was a good-looking person. Chapter 808. But you are not acquainted with him. Shen Qiu anxiously said, how do you know how he conducts himself? Isn't the world like this? Shen Miao lightly said, some people get along for a lifetime and do not know the other party's way of life. Marrying to Prince Rue is not as bad as you all think. Staying in the Ding capital, it would be easier for others to plot against my identity, and the Shen family would not be able to protect me. Shen Xian's eyes flashed with a trace of pain. The greater her military power was, the more shackles she had to endure. The more the emperor feared her, the more he wanted to restrain her. Shen Miao's marriage could be manipulated by the crown prince previously. Naturally, it could be manipulated by others. One should not be afraid of thieves stealing, but one should be afraid of thieves remembering. The Shen family indeed could not protect Shen Miao. For the first time in his body and mind, he hated his military power. Great Liang is a good place. Shen Miao smiled slightly, and there was some yearning in her tone. It was written in the travel notes that the Great Liang country was prosperous and the people were peaceful. The doors were not closed at night, and people sang and danced to celebrate peace. The people are happy, and the bandits are purged. It's a good scene. No matter how good the scenery is, you're alone. Luo Shuiyan couldn't bear to continue. Great Liang's Princess Rue is the Qinhuang Fei. He's only below one person and above tens of thousands, so he won't go so far as to bully me. Shen Miao pondered, since Prince Rue wants to marry me, one cannot say that he has deep feelings for me. Naturally, he would treat me well. She rarely said such teasing words about herself, but it made Luo Shuiyan and the rest laugh. Luo Shuiyan smiled. Silly child. He may not necessarily. Her words suddenly stopped. Shen Miao was smart and intelligent, so how would she not know that Prince Rue was most likely not her person, but was here for the Shen family? Saying that was just to reassure them. Thinking of this, Luo Shuiyan felt extremely sad. Shen Miao smiled gently. It is a happy event, but why do you all look so unhappy? If that's the case, it would be bad luck. She said, since the imperial edict has been issued, it won't be long before we are notified. I also have to start embroidering my dowry. There was not a trace of complaint or unhappiness in her tone. Instead, it was very natural, as if this was a marriage that had been proposed for a long time. The more it was like this, the sadder Shen Xian and his wife were. After talking for a while, Shen Miao felt tired, and everyone then ate. The meal was tasteless, and everyone had their own thoughts. After the meal, everyone dispersed to rest. Luo Tan held onto Shen Miao's arm as she had something to say to Shen Miao. Just as they were walking towards her courtyard, Luo Ling called out to her. Cousin Ling, what's the matter? Shen Miao looked at him and asked. Luo Ling asked, Biao younger sister really want to marry Prince Rue? Luo Tan looked at Luo Ling strangely and Luo Tan smiled. The imperial edict is already out, whether one wants or not. It has nothing to do with me. I thought you would directly say no. Luo Ling's eyes dimmed, but there was still a smile, just like the rejection of those young masters in the Shaochun city. Shen Miao smiled, but did not speak. Congratulations. He smiled bitterly. Shen Miao nodded her head in thanks. After finally sending off Luo Ling, Luo Tan pulled Shen Miao back to the courtyard and dismissed the servants before closing the door. Lowering her voice, she said mysteriously, Biao youngest sister, you know about this matter, right?
What?
Shen Miao was baffled. It is the matter of Prince Rue forcing His Majesty to bestow a marriage to you. Luo Tan said in a hurry. Shen Miao's heart jumped. Luo Tan was usually carefree and was not sensitive to anything but on matters that she should not know. She had an exceptionally sharp intuition. She dealt with it vaguely. How is it possible? Why is it not possible? Luo Tan's interest was piqued. Do you still remember the last time when we were kidnapped? When I woke up, I brought your words to Prince Rue, and Prince Rue found you not long later. At that time, I was curious about the relationship between the both of you. Your relationship must be very good, otherwise why would Prince Rue help you? Is it like what the books say, heroes and beauties and such? Chapter 809. Shen Miao said, you should read less books. not to mention books. Luo Tan's hand supported her cheeks. That Prince Rui's ability is not small. At that time Gugu and Gufu could not find you for several days, but he managed to find you in a short while. Our Luo family only look at one's ability. He is a man with ability, and one heard that he is also very good-looking. This is hard to come by, as many good-looking men are embroidered pillows, pleasant to look at but useless. Just like that physician Gao, who often comes to our residence. He is also quite good-looking, but one look and one would know that he is too weak to stand up to the wind. This kind of man is unreliable, and at most one can only look at him, but not use him. Song Yang, who was listening with relish on the tree branch, almost fell down. Pleasant to look at, but useless. This Biao young lady of the Luo family was also very powerful. One did not know how Gentleman Gao would feel after hearing it. All right. Shen Miao glanced at her, rambling on and on about these things. What matter do you have? Biao, youngest sister, I knew that you are the smartest. In the entire Shen residence, you understand me the best. Even my biological younger brother Luo, Qian, does not have the same telepathy with me. Luo Tan looked at Shen Miao with anticipation. I only have one wish. When you go to Great Liang, bring me along. I will be your Biao older sister, accompanying you in marriage. Shen Miao almost fainted. She said in disbelief. What did you say? I have never been to Great Liang. Luo Tan said, One have heard that Great Liang is a good place and there are a lot of good food and fun things to do. This trip that I and older brother Ling came out was to gain experience in the Ding capital. The more places you see, the better it is for you to gain experience. Shen Miao said, It was obviously you who secretly climbed up the carriage. Luo Tan said, If there is still loyalty, then bring me along. Not bring. Shen Miao's heart was as hard as stone. In the next 1 hour, Shen Miao witnessed the scene of Luo Tan dawdling on her body for a long time. Even though she had Xie Jingxing with her, Shen Miao knew that it would not be a smooth journey and no one could say for sure what would happen in the future, so there was no need to bring Luo Tan along. After Luo Tan left, Shen Miao sighed and opened the windows. There were trees dancing outside, and the winter night was cold and desolate. Xie Jingxing was really capable. She thought that he did not even say a word and took the initiative to give her the imperial decree. Not only did he issue the imperial edict, but he had also disappeared. What did he mean by not appearing at such a crucial moment? Did he run away after flirting with her? Shen Miao slammed the window shut. Shameless. The sound was so loud that Song Yang dug his ears. He thought that it was probably young Madame Kue Shui, who was so temperamental on the other side, in the courtyard of Shen Xian and wife. Shen Xian was also discussing this matter with Luo Shuiyan. Shen Xian said, Going to Great Liang with Jiao Jiao? Luo Shuiyan nodded her head. We are not by Jiao Jiao's side. If Jiao Jiao met with trouble in Great Liang, the sky is high and the earth is far away. We do not know the grievances she has suffered. In the beginning, wasn't there also a young lady who was married to another country and was killed by her husband's family? This N did not know? How dare he? Shen Xian flew into a rage, but immediately suppressed his anger and said, I can go, but one fear that the emperor will not let the person go. Luo Shuiyan's voice lowered. Now that the situation between Great Liang and Mingqi is so tense, if we also go to Great Liang, the emperor would definitely think that we are defecting. It is indeed not appropriate. But is there really no other way? In helplessness, Shen Xian's back faced Luo Shuiyan as he looked at a painting on the wall. That was the painting that old General Shen gave him, devoted to serving the country. He was loyal and he served the country, but what did he get in return? The Shen family was particular about a ruler under the heavens. If the ruler wanted the minister to die, the minister had no choice but to die. But why did he feel regret at this moment? Chapter 810. This sovereign had always guarded against him, suppressed him, and controlled him. Shen Xian did not feel anything, even if the sovereign used him. But why did he want to hurt his own children? Did all the sovereigns in the world treat their loyal subjects like this, or was it only this one? Shen Xian thought that if Emperor Wenhui was in front of Prince Rui and had a little bit of resistance or fight for Shen Miao, he would not be as dissatisfied with Emperor Wenhui as he was now. It was because Emperor Wenhui answered in a straightforward manner, as if Shen Miao was nothing in front of the Great Liang, that there was a knot in Shen Xian's heart. If Ming Qi was stronger, would they not need to bow their heads in front of the Great Liang, and one Prince Rui would be able to force the sovereign out of his wits? Shen Xian suddenly had a trace of disgust towards Emperor Wenhui's incompetence. But he did not realize that in this transaction, the resentment that he had towards Emperor Wenhui was much more than that of Prince Rui of the Great Liang. He naturally didn't know that his change of heart had been predicted by a certain someone a long time ago. Luo Shuiyan was still nagging. Why would Prince Rui suddenly want to marry Jiao Jiao? The Great Liang does not lack this bit of military power, and even if it was to sow discord, it would not need to be like this. Shen Xian said, I will go and inquire tomorrow. Sleep first. But tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. Emperor Wenhui announced the imperial decree in front of all the civil and military officials, thus there was no reason to hide it. In just a short day, almost everyone in the Ding capital knew about it. From the officials to the commoners, everyone were discussing about this matter. The princess' residence was solemn. Princess Rong Xian sat on the main seat and could not help but sneer. Why did she not see that this nephew of hers had such ability? Xie Jingxing had obviously seen Shen Miao in a different light 2 years ago, and after that he became Prince Rui. Princess Rong Xian thought that with Prince Rui's identity, no matter how much Xie Jingxing favored Shen Miao, it would be impossible for him and Shen Miao to be together in this lifetime. She did not expect that Xie Jingxing had this ability and was able to get the thing that she wanted. In the afternoon, Princess Rong Xian went to the palace to meet Emperor Wenhui after learning of the news. She knew that Emperor Wenhui would not bestow a marriage to Shen Miao for no reason, and insisted on knowing the reason. Emperor Wenhui still respected her as an elder sister and told the ins and outs of the matter to Princess Rong Xian. Princess Rong Xian was unable to say what she was feeling in her heart and only felt a chill down her spine. That beautiful youth, the one who always called her Aunt Rome with a smile, was completely different from what she remembered. The current Xie Jingxing was filled with an unfamiliar aura. He could lay low for a few years to get what he wanted, and he would get what he wanted in the end. His domineering attitude, sharp methods, and merciless threats, he was more like a superior. Princess Rong Xian's heart was somewhat afraid. She did not know if she should tell Emperor Wenhui about Xie Jingxing's identity. Even if he told them, nothing would happen. Since Xie Jingxing dared to come, then he must have made thorough preparations. But if one were to tell, at least the common people of Mingqi would know of Xie Jingxing's face and not talk about a young talent who died young all day long. Princess Rong Xian thought for a while and images of her childhood surfaced in her mind. She did not go out all day and had little interaction with others, and even the maids did not allow them to enter the room at night. At that time, it was the Fuma Memorial Day, and she caught a cold. On the second day, she could not get up from the bed, and her body was strangely cold. Xie Jingxing, who was 5 years old, brought hot porridge from the small kitchen and fed it to her spoonful by spoonful. He even took a small stool and sat in front of her bed and read poems to her. Chapter 8:11. For such a beautiful little boy to do such a considerate action, as long as it was a female, no one would not be touched. Thinking about it, 10 years had passed in a blink of an eye. They were obviously not mother and son, but they were closer than mother and son, so how did they come to this stage? On one side was the country's enmity, and on the other side was several decades of companionship. Princess Rong Xian's heart suddenly became sad. What should be done? Princess Rong Xian did not know that these days the princess residence's every move was being watched, and it was not just one person. Because their princess residence did not interact with outsiders, even the guards were somewhat lazy and her every move was being monitored. In the residence of the Count of Pingnan, Su Minglang looked at the sugar-steamed cheese that the maid brought over and righteously refused. I do not want to eat. Bring it to eldest brother. Now Su Minglang had reached the age of loving beauty, and as compared to the plump and white dumpling, Su Minglang was more willing to be a cute little gentleman. Therefore, although these sweet things smelled very fragrant, he was determined not to touch them. Then he suddenly thought of something and called out to the maid, "Never mind. Do not bring it to eldest brother. If eldest brother were to marry older Shin in the future, how can older Shin dislike eldest brother for being a fatty?" The maid looked at Su Minglang's little adult appearance and was somewhat speechless as she held the plate and did not know what to do. When Su Minglang saw this, he gave a long sigh. "Since you are so difficult, then I will reluctantly eat it." He then fiercely warned the maid, "Do not tell mother that I snatched eldest brother's sugar-steamed cheese to eat." Maid. In the room, Su Mingfeng did not have the mood to eat any sugar-steamed cheese. He paced back and forth in the room with an anxious expression. Su Yu looked at him sympathetically and patted his shoulder. "Son, father knows that your heart is upset, but this imperial edict was personally given by His Majesty. Father is also helpless and can only say that your luck is not good and the young lady that you fancy is not fated with. But fortunately young Shen is going to marry Prince Rui and would have to go to the Great Liang. What the eyes do not see, the heart does not grieve. After some time, you will forget about her." Emperor Wen Hui had given the imperial edict, and Su Yu and Su Foren were most afraid that Su Mingfeng would not be able to bear this blow. After telling him tactfully, Su Mingfeng locked himself in the study. Su Foren was afraid that Su Mingfeng would commit suicide and specially let Su Yu go in to persuade him. "Father, can you not give me more trouble?" Su Mingfeng said impatiently, "I am not sad because of this." "Son, do you think I don't know what you're thinking?" Su Yu said, "It's a waste to be a playboy. I was your age as well. It's nothing. There are plenty of fish in the sea. You have to be more open-minded." Su Mingfeng could not bear it any longer and said, "All right. Father, I know. I want to be alone now and will not commit suicide. Can you let me be alone for a while?" Seeing that the usually gentle Su Mingfeng's face had started to show signs of displeasure, Su Yu was afraid that if he continued speaking it would stimulate Su Mingfeng's fragile heart of a young male, so he smiled awkwardly. "In short, father will work hard to find a fairy-like young lady for you to be your wife. Do not be sad." He left dejectedly. After Father Su left, Su Mingfeng sat down in front of the desk, and his heart was inexplicably irritated. Emperor Wen Hui suddenly decreed a marriage for Xin Miao. This made Su Mingfeng very surprised. After all, a few days ago Xin Miao and the Crown Prince had a relationship, so why was she together with Prince Rui today? Su Mingfeng did not have time to guess Emperor Wen Hui's thoughts as he was thinking about Xin Miao. Xin Miao and Xie Jingxing seemed to have a deep relationship 2 years ago, and a few days ago, because of the tiger head bracelet, Su Mingfeng was sure that Xin Miao and Xie Jingxing had a special relationship. Su Mingfeng even suspected that Xie Jingxing was still alive. If one wanted to find news of Xie Jingxing, one must pay attention to Xin Miao. But why did the matter of Xin Miao and Prince Rui's marriage make him so uneasy? It was as if something was about to come out and something was about to happen. This kind of strange premonition made Su Mingfeng's entire person abnormal today. Just as he was restless, someone came back from outside. This was the spy that Su Mingfeng sent out, and was responsible for sending people to monitor the princess residence and the Xin mansion. Su Mingfeng felt that Princess Rong Xian might know something and needless to say about Xin Miao. That spy bowed towards Su Mingfeng and said, "There is a way to investigate the matter that young master instructed this subordinate to investigate a few days ago." Su Mingfeng's heart was delighted and immediately sat up straight. "Quickly speak." This subordinate's people followed the guards of the princess residence and discovered that someone had been monitoring the movements of the residence of Prince Rui. If this subordinate guessed correctly, it should be Princess Rong Xian's instructions. There seemed to be a few people from the guards of the residence of Prince Rui lurking in the Xin mansion. One do not know if they are monitoring or protecting fifth Xin young lady. Su Mingfeng's brows wrinkled. Why were they all Prince Rui? Princess Rong Xian was monitoring Prince Rui, and Prince Rui was monitoring Xin Miao? But he was obviously looking for clues about Xie Jingxing. Could it be? A terrifying thought flashed through his mind. Su Mingfeng's heart violently beat. Chapter 812. These few days the Shin family had fallen into a very strange mood. Because of Shun Miao's marriage bestowal imperial edict, everyone was filled with gloomy clouds. Even though everyone tried their best to show joy, at the end they could not hide the gloominess. Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan both left early and returned late every day. It seemed that they were looking for a way to dissolve this marriage, but they returned without any success. Thinking about it, since Emperor Wen Hui announced this imperial edict in front of all the civil and military officials, most likely it was to cut off Shen Xian's thoughts of defying the edict. A ruler does not joke, and words that were said were like water that was spilled. In the previous dynasty, there was a princess who fancied the top scorer, and at that time the top scorer already had a wife. Was it not because of the words "a ruler does not joke" that he divorced his wife and remarried? When Xin Qiu saw Shin Miao, he would always reveal a look of guilt. These days, he would frequently give Shin Miao some rare treasures and would only say, "Older brother does not have any ability and can only find these things for you." Shin Miao was speechless about the atmosphere in the Shin family. She naturally knew that the matter was not that bad, but these could not be said to the Shin family. If Shin Xian knew what Xie Jingxing's real motive was, one did not know how big of a fuss he would make. In Mingqi, she had to take care of the Shin family, and it was not convenient for her to do many things. If she was in the Great Liang, she could use Xie Jingxing's name to do many things, and it would be much easier. She looked relaxed, but others thought that she was pretending. Today when she was sitting in the room reading, she saw Bai Lu rushing in. "Young lady, Fern wants you to quickly go to the main hall. The people from the residence of Prince Rui have sent the list of betrothal gifts." Shen Miao was startled. Betrothal gifts list? Xie Jingxing was really daring to the extreme. He clearly knew that the Shin family did not like him and even hated him so much, but still dared to send the list of betrothal gifts over. If this was not adding oil to the fire, then what was it? But thinking of Xie Jingxing's unscrupulous character, it was indeed something that he would do. Upon reaching the main hall, one could see Luo Shuiyan holding a long thing from afar, and beside Luo Shuiyan, Shen Qiu and Shen Xian were also standing with their heads stretched out. Luo Tan was covering her mouth and Luo Ling's gaze was complicated. In short, everyone's expression was very strange. When Shen Miao stepped into the room, she then discovered that other than the Shin family, there was another person standing in the room. When she saw that person's appearance clearly, Shen Miao almost choked on herself. This person was a middle-aged man with a face full of beard, and Shen Miao had seen him before. He seemed to be Xie Jingxing's bodyguard, and Songyang also called him Tai. At a glance, one could tell that this person was a brave and mighty person. Today, he was wearing a bright red robe. The robe was embroidered with colorful phoenixes and auspicious clouds using thin golden peach silk threads. It was probably for the sake of a happy atmosphere. However, Tai's skin was dark to begin with. Wearing this robe, his previous heroic aura was completely concealed, making him look extremely stupid. Seeing her, Tai bowed to her and said in a serious tone, "Wang Fei." This time, even Shen Qiu could not help but cough. He glared at Tai. "Do not call out randomly." Tai simply did not care about him. Shen Miao inexplicably wanted to laugh. Was Xie Jingxing here to smash the scene? Even if it was a list of betrothal gifts, it should be found a joyous matron to read it. The residence of Prince Rui was so rich, and yet they had to let Tai, such a big and burly man, to read it. This was purposely making others laugh. Seeing Shen Miao standing there in a daze, Luo Tan called out to her, "Biao, youngest sister, why are you standing there in a daze? Quickly come and look at this betrothal gift list." She winked at Shen Miao and seemed to be very excited. Shen Miao then walked over. That betrothal gift list was very exquisite. It was a long roll of fragrant wood that was sprinkled with gold powder, and the cover was inlaid with emerald green cat's eye stones. It was very luxurious. Even this betrothal gift list was not cheap. Even though Shin Xian and wife were not vain people, but Prince Rui's actions showed that he valued Shin Miao, and his complexion became better. Chapter 813. Luo Shuiyan handed the list of betrothal gifts to Tai Yi and said, "Read it." According to Ming Qi's custom, the list of betrothal gifts must be sung by the male side. The longer it was sung, the more generous the betrothal gifts and the more decent the female side would be. It was obvious that Tai Yi was not used to doing this kind of thing as he flipped to the first page and dryly sang, "One Wangwali bed surrounded by begonia flowers, one Luohan bed with 3 screens, one Wangwali top cabinet, one Wangwali wood cabinet, one Nama bookcase, one Nama treasure cabinet, one pair of Kaupi red vase, one Wangwali Kong table, one pair of Wangwali gold coin cabinet." The first page was furniture, and everyone was dumbstruck when they heard it. So many things, even if it was placed in the current Shin mansion, it would not be able to fit. This was enough to place 3 residences. He heard Tai Yi sing again, a rui made of agarwood inlaid with jade, a rui made of fine jade, a lamp made of tin foil, a small gold-plated clock, a silver pocket watch, a pot of green jade and emerald bamboo bonsai, a pot of silver-plated plum blossom bonsai, a plain tricolor 18-seed plate, a pot of powder enamel tea, a sai of Chen's virginity wine, a bamboo and plum blossom double happiness hanging mirror, a splendor hanging screen. Every single item was worth a lot and would be able to exchange for a few years of an ordinary family's expenses. This Prince Rui came with such a large pile. Even if one had money, it would not be used like this. Luo Tan sniffed and somewhat timidly pulled Shin Miao's sleeves. "What does Prince Rui's family do? Are you a salt merchant?" Luo Shuiyan and Shin Xian also frowned. This Prince Rui's betrothal gifts were too generous. But without giving them time to be surprised, Tai Yi had already continued to sing. The third page was daily necessities. He sang 6 boxes of boxwood comb, 2 boxes of xiang and shu bamboo comb, 1 red sandalwood dressing box, mouthwash, sandalwood soap, curtains, satin door curtains, glass bead door curtains, green water, 5 colored tassels, mandarin duck pillow, 8 beds and 8 covers, everyone in the Shin family. Tai Yi continued to the 4th page of clothing, big fur chi-style clothing, silver mouse skin, gray mouse skin, sheepskin, pearl fur, 12 sets of various cotton chi-style clothing, 32 sets of gauze clips, silk clips, satin clips, and cloth clips, single shirt, spun silk, fox silk. There were 12 sets of cotton silk and chiffon printed gowns. 5 blessings holding longevity, phoenixes wearing peonies, 100 butterflies wearing flowers, 10,000 words unbuttoned clothes, 12 sets. 30 hides of fine silk, 6 bolts of scented cloud muslin, 20 bolts of woven brocade, 10 bolts of cloud brocade, 10 bolts of Sichuan brocade, and 12 bolts of silk yarn. 36 embroidered satin quilts, 20 pairs of embroidered shoes, 40 pairs of silk stockings. Luo Shuiyan couldn't help but ask this. "Little brother, could it be that you took the wrong betrothal gift list from Prince Rui? This is not right. How is this marrying a wife?" This was Princess Shang's procession. "No, not even Princess Shang is so particular about it," Tai Yi said expressionlessly. "It will not happen. The residence of Prince Rui only has this list of betrothal gifts. Madam, please continue to listen." He sang the 5th page of gold and silver jewelry, 1 plate of coral pearls, gold foil pearls, beeswax pearls, agarwood pearls, for pieces of green jade ornaments, for pieces of white jade ornaments, 2 pieces of crystal accessories, pearl bracelets, emerald bracelets, coral bracelets. He sang the 6th page of antique calligraphy and painting, for pairs of woven gold-colored porcelain vases, 1 pair of Lang Hong jade vases, 1 pair of Chenghua colored vases, 1 Xuanda blue, glazed white plum vase. He sang the 7th page of 4 boxes of books, 1 box of 4 treasures of the study. He sang the 8th page of maids and servants and personal guards. He sang the 9th page of horses and vehicles, the 10th page of everyone in the Shin family, the The more Tai Yi sang, the smoother he got, and the longer he sang, the more he sang. Compared to those old students in the Xiao Chun city, the lingering charm lingered in the air. Every sentence he sang made one feel as if they were seeing a large amount of shining silver. When he finished singing the last sentence, he subconsciously stopped and let out a long breath before closing the betrothal gift list. He then looked toward Shin Miao. Chapter 814. The property shops were not included in the list of gifts because they were all in Great Liang. Tai Yi smiled sincerely. Your Highness, if you convert all of them into gold and silver, it would be 10,000 pounds of gold, 5,000 jin of gold. Luo Tin almost fainted. Tai Yi continued. The bought residence of Prince Rui to the Shin Mansion and all the other residences in between are also included. Someone will send the land deeds over later. He respectfully handed the list of betrothal gifts to Luo Shuiyan and said, May Furan accept it. Luo Shuiyan did not accept it. Everyone in the room was dumbfounded. Luo Shuiyan did not dare to accept it. That was 10,000 jin of gold, and there was such a long list of betrothal gifts. Was their Shin family going to become the wealthiest family in Mingqi? Did Prince Rui really not move the Great Liang's treasury over? Was Prince Rui's brain sick? Shin Xian frowned. It was still Shin Xiao who reacted first. He hesitated and carefully probed. Does your emperor know about the list of betrothal gifts that Prince Rui wrote? Tai Yi was stunned. Then he thought of something and smiled. Your Majesty doesn't care much about worldly possessions. Moreover, it's not a big amount. Seeing the Shin family's shocked appearance, Tai Yi continued, in the Great Liang's imperial family, gold, silver, and pearls are like sand, stones, and fine soil. Everywhere. Everyone was in awe. It seemed that the Great Liang was indeed rich, and the people were strong, rich to the point of overflowing with oil. Such a generous betrothal gift that could fill the Mingqi's treasury in an instant. In their eyes, it was just like sand and stones. How rich was it? Tai Yi continued, but General Furan, please be assured that His Highness, marrying Shin young lady is all according to the Great Liang imperial family's rights. Only then did Luo Shuiyan and Shin Xian wake up. Even though they were not lacking in gold and silver, they still paid special attention to Shin Miao's matter and followed etiquette. He also sighed that Shin Miao's betrothal gift was not even half as rich as the one that Emperor Wen Hui won from the Empress. If it was an ordinary official marrying a wife, they would naturally have to consider that they could not be more generous than the royal family. But Prince Rui was not a Mingqi person but a Great Liang person, so naturally there was no need to consider this layer. Even if it was richer than the imperial family would not say anything. As such, Shin Miao's betrothal gift should be the grandest since the founding of Mingqi. Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan finally had a trace of comfort in their hearts. No matter what, since the imperial edict could not be changed, Shin Miao was destined to marry Prince Rui. Marrying out in style was at least the lifelong wish of many young ladies, and it could be considered as a compensation for Shin Miao. Thinking of this, the bad feeling that the two of them had towards Prince Rui had dissipated by quite a bit. Even their attitude towards the bearded man in front of them was much more amiable. Luo Shuiyan asked, but why haven't they sent the Gung invitation over? Before the marriage, one would need to match the 8 characters of the 8 characters, but because Shin Miao's marriage was very special, it was Emperor Wen Hui who directly decreed the marriage, thus this round was skipped. Tai Yi said, His Highness had already let a famous monk calculate his and Shin young lady's 8 characters, and they are a match made in heaven, companions who have cultivated for 500 years. Today, madam, please hand over the title card to me. His Highness' title card will be sent along with the title deed. The other party's attitude was very sincere, as if no one could find fault with him no matter what. Luo Tan could not help but ask, when is the wedding date? In His Majesty's imperial edict, there was no specific time mentioned. Tai Yi smiled. The marriage invitation is already done. His Highness will return to the Great Liang after the end of the year, and on the day of returning to the Great Liang, He will marry Shin young lady. She will wear red makeup all the way until the Great Liang's capital city gates. That was equivalent to saying that from the Ming Qi's wedding, there would be gongs and drums all the way until they returned to the Great Liang. After completing all kinds of wedding ceremonies in Ming Qi, it would be officially announced to the Great Liang's people upon returning. It was as if Shin Miao was raised to a very high position to announce to the world that Shin Miao was Princess Rui's identity. Chapter 815. Shun Xian and Luo Shuiyan looked at each other and saw the doubt in each other's eyes. This Prince Rui was so attentive to Shin Miao, no matter how one looked at it, as if he really liked Shin Miao. Was that even possible? Shin Miao had only seen Prince Rui a few times. Luo Ling's eyes were so dim that one could not see the light. He lowered his head and looked at the ground, as if he could see a flower on the ground. Everyone in the room had different expressions, and Shin Miao's reaction was rather dull. She nodded and said to Tai Yi, "Thank you." Tai Yi hurriedly said that he didn't dare, and explained that he still had things to send over in a few days before leaving. After Tai Yi left, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan had already sensed something unusual. If one were to say that Prince Rui's aim was to sow discord between the Shin family and the imperial family of Ming Qi, or to make the Shin family unable to be used by the imperial family of Ming Qi, then when the imperial edict came down, Prince Rui's aim had already been achieved. Since he had achieved his goal, nothing else mattered. Why was there such a big lineup? No matter how much money there was, it would not pressure one's hands. Unless the Great Liang's treasury was small and could not pile up the money, then they would impatiently run over to Ming Qi and hand over this monstrous wealth to the Shin family as a dowry. Wasn't that unnecessary? It was Shin Qiuwei who noticed this point and said angrily, "This Prince Rui is a weasel paying respects to a chicken and does not have any good intentions? Sending so many things. Do you think that my Shin family is greedy for wealth? We are marrying a young lady, not selling a young lady. With so much money, who knows what other people will think of the Shin family?" Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan were silent. That was true. Even the royal family would be envious of this betrothal gift, let alone the commoners. What was even more amazing was that these were sent over by Prince Rui of the Great Liang. Even those who had thoughts about these betrothal gifts did not dare to act rashly, and only dared to look at it. One did not know how many people were unable to sleep in the Ding capital at night. Especially Shun Xian's enemies, they would probably vomit blood. Luo Tan smiled and said, "No matter what, brother-in-law's generosity is much better than being stingy. If a man is willing to spend money on a girl, then that's a good man." Before marrying into the family, he has already given Biao youngest sister so many things. If Biao youngest sister were to marry into the family, she would definitely not be treated poorly in the field of food and clothing. Luo Tan had always been straightforward with her words and did not know how to conceal them. But when she said brother-in-law, it made the corners of people's eyes hurt. Shin Xian covered his head. "Where are we going to pile these things?" "That's right," Luo Shuiyan also said worriedly. "We can't store so many things in our house." There was not enough jewelry and antiques in the warehouse, and there were also furniture and fabrics. "Do you want to build a granary in the mansion to store things?" Shin Miao wanted to laugh when she heard it and said, "Did he not buy all those residences? After he leaves, those residences will belong to the Shin family. How about buying a few guards and sending some things over? Why don't you just stay in Prince Rui's residence?" Shin Xian shook his head. "Yanqing Lane is not a place we can stay in." That was where the relatives of the imperial family stayed. Who knew what outsiders would think if Shin Xian and the rest stayed there? Thinking of Tai Yi's words, a flash of pain appeared in her eyes. He will leave after the end of the year. Jiao, after the end of the year, Shin Miao would go to the Great Liang. Everyone in the room became silent. Parting, especially between family members, was never a pleasant thing. When Shin Miao saw that, she was afraid that they would be sentimental and quickly changed the topic. Prince Rui had sent so many betrothal gifts. How will the dowry be calculated? Luo Tan was feeling a little thirsty and picked up the tea on the table to take a sip. When she heard that, she spurted out a mouthful of tea and sprayed it all over Luo Ling. But at this moment she was not in the mood to care if Luo Ling's clothes were dirty and said, "Dowry? Heavens!" Chapter 816. Everyone in the Shin family felt as if they had been struck by a thunderbolt. Logically speaking, the amount of betrothal gifts that were given, the dowry in return would not be much different. Even though it need not be more than the betrothal gifts, it could not be too little. Otherwise, when the young lady went to the in-laws' house, she would be suppressed. If the dowry was very generous and even more than the betrothal gifts, it would be glorious when one married over. Thus, the more favored the young lady married, the closer the amount of dowry and betrothal gifts. Not to mention that Shin Xian doted on his daughter. But this dowry. Prince Rui had given so many betrothal gifts to the Shun residents. If one wanted a dowry that was not much different, even if one emptied the entire Mingqi's treasury, there would not be that much. Prince Rui gave the Shin family a difficult problem. At night, Shin Miao sat under the lamp and could not help but want to laugh as she thought of Tai Yi holding a long list of betrothal gifts during the day. Xie Jingxing was really too reckless and actually wrote so many betrothal gifts. Shin Miao face-bombed. If others were to see this list of betrothal gifts, one feared that the Shin family would be envied by everyone in Mingqi. However, this list of betrothal gifts would definitely be found out by others, and it was only a matter of time. It was just that one did not know if Emperor Yongle knew that Xie Jingxing had written such a long list. Thinking about it, Shin Miao felt somewhat sad. In her previous life when she married Fu Xiuyi did not give such a generous betrothal gift. Not to mention the imperial family, there was not even a betrothal gift from an official's family, and it could only be considered as ordinary. At that time, Fu Xiuyi said that the residence of Prince Ding was poor and he was simple in nature, so he did not want to do it wantonly, thus Shin Miao believed it. Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan were afraid that she would be wronged and took out more than half of the Shun residence's harvest as her dowry. Those dowry were all given to Fu Xiuyi. If Fu Xiuyi wanted to win over this and that, he would need to use money to buy people's hearts. She meticulously calculated every single cent, and some of the old antiques and paintings in the Shin residence were also taken by her to be exchanged for money. Now thinking about it, after being married to Fu Xiuyi for so many years, it was always her who brought the entire Shin family out, and Fu Xiuyi had never returned anything. Although matters of the heart depended on one's own willingness and did not ask for anything in return, as time passed, one's heart would be bitterly disappointed. Especially after ascending the throne, Fu Xiuyi's generosity towards Mei Foran and Fu Sheng was like a slap to her face. Now that she was married to Xie Jingxing, she did not know what kind of feeling she had in her heart. She was moved, but it was not as passionate as in her previous life, like a moth flying into a flame. But Xie Jingxing had given her something that was beyond her imagination. It made people look forward to this marriage. The window was knocked twice. Shin Miao looked up and saw Tsongyang pacing outside, so she opened the window. When Tsongyang saw her, he first bowed to her and said, "Young foreign, master let this subordinate bring you over." Shin Miao was stunned, but in the blink of an eye she nodded her head. All right. Coincidentally, she also had something to say to Xie Jingxing. It was different from the first time. This time when Shin Miao came to the residence of Prince Rui, it was considered to be a lot more familiar. It was still Tsongyang who carried haystacks everywhere for Shin Miao to climb the walls. He was thinking in his heart that next time he might as well break through all the walls and save the trouble. When Shin Miao arrived at the residence of Prince Rui, when the servants of Prince Rui's residence saw her, they all stopped what they were doing and respectfully greeted her. "Young foreign." "Shin Miao." Tsongyang said cheerfully, "Young foreign, everyone likes you very much." Shin Miao only felt somewhat embarrassed, and her heart was filled with mixed feelings. When she was led by Songyang to the rear courtyard of the residence of Prince Rui, she saw a snow-white fur ball rushing towards her from afar and happily bit the corner of her clothes. Chapter 8:17. There was a lazy voice that sounded in the night. Jiao Jiao, come over. Shen Miao looked up and saw Xie Jingxing leaning on the tree with his hands folded across his chest, looking at her with a smile that was not a smile. One did not know who the white tiger at his feet was calling out to. Shen Miao walked towards him, and the white tiger happily followed. This white tiger's temperament was one of familiarity. They had only met a few times, and Shen Miao had never teased it before, but it actually shook its head and tail affectionately towards her. If one did not know, one would have thought that this white tiger was raised by Shen Miao. She stood beside Xie Jingxing and asked, "Why did you look for me?" Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "To cut clothes." "Cut clothes?" Shen Miao was suspicious, and before she could continue asking, Xie Jingxing suddenly reached out and pulled her into his embrace and gently hugged her before letting go. His movements were too fast, and it was just a short moment from the hug, making Shen Miao hold her breath and did not know what to say. If she were to continue speaking, it would seem like he was haggling over every ounce. If she did not continue, it would indeed be taken advantage of by him. Xie Jingxing said, "With your temper, most likely you will not obediently embroider wedding clothes. I found the best embroiderer in Great Liang, but do not know the size of your clothes." He looked at Shen Miao up and down and said meaningfully, "One will know after hugging." Shen Miao said, "Shameless. Shameless." Xie Jingxing slowly said, "But just now you seem to like it very much." Every time this person said 3 sentences, he would be able to anger others to death. Shen Miao sarcastically said, "Your means are really superb. One hug, and you know the size. Have you done this many times before?" Xie Jingxing stared at her until Shen Miao's spine went numb before his lips hooked up. "Jealous? Then you can hug it back." He opened his arms and had an appearance of letting her pick. "Who wants to hug you?" Shen Miao despised. "Oh right, I have something to ask you." Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "What is it?" "The list of betrothal gifts has been received." "Why did you send so many betrothal gifts?" Shen Miao felt it was funny when she thought about it. Our Shen mansion cannot hold those things. Moreover, you sent so many things and the Shen family cannot afford the same dowry. Are you deliberately looking for trouble? "Just this?" Xie Jingxing casually said. "I still intend to send more." Shen Miao. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a guard rushing in from the outside. When he saw Xie Jingxing, he revealed a difficult expression and said, "Your Highness, there is someone looking for you outside." This subordinate tried to stop him, but he was like a madman, shouting your name. Afraid that it would cause a misunderstanding, we could only temporarily restrain him. "So?" Xie Jingxing asked. "It is the eldest young master of the Su family, Count of Pingnan, Su Mingfeng," the guard said. Shen Miao suddenly raised her head. In the front hall of Prince Rui's mansion, there was a young man who was tied up. He was almost tied up like a dumpling, and there was a piece of rag in his mouth. He stared angrily at the guards and struggled in vain. This person was Su Mingfeng. Su Mingfeng had already sent people to monitor the residence of Prince Rui for a long time, and even the Shen mansion and the princess residence were also monitored. The longer the investigation, the deeper the suspicions in Su Mingfeng's heart. He suspected that Prince Rui was the dead Xie Jingxing. Even though this conjecture was ridiculous, but as time went by, this idea did not disappear but became more and more ingrained. Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao had some relationship, and now Shen Miao was betrothed to Prince Rui. If Xie Jingxing was Prince Rui, then everything would be clear. Su Mingfeng had a kind of obsession with Xie Jingxing that others were unable to understand. After all, that was a childhood playmate that he grew up with. He had learned a lot of things from Xie Jingxing, and Xie Jingxing's significance to him could almost affect his entire life. No matter if Xie Jingxing was Prince Rui or not, Su Mingfeng must personally check. He wanted to sneak into the residence of Prince Rue and see the appearance of Prince Rue when he took off his mask. At that time, the truth would be revealed. This was a crazy move, but Su Mingfeng felt that there was a reason to do it. He was not stupid enough to directly go in himself, but let his own people create a diversion to lure the guards of the residence of Prince Rue, and then he would take advantage of the chaos to sneak in. But Su Mingfeng did not expect that the guards of the residence of Prince Rue were so smart that they caught him in an instant. There was some frustration and more disappointment. At this time, Su Mingfeng was thinking that since he had already been caught, it was not worth it to not recognize the facts. So he struggled with all his might and even reported his background, hoping to attract the attention of Prince Rue. Just as he was thinking, a bearded person dressed like a guard walked in from outside and stopped in front of him. Su Mingfeng's heart could not help but tighten. The bearded person gave a look to the surrounding people, and immediately someone came over to untie him and remove the cloth in his mouth. "Master wants to see you.
Follow me."
Chapter 8:18. Su Mingfeng followed the bearded guard, and along the way, the servants of the residence of Prince Rue cast a scrutinizing gaze at him which made Su Mingfeng feel somewhat uncomfortable. But after thinking about it, the matter had already come to this, and there was no chance to turn back. Anyway, Prince Rue had already offended, and if it was not true, at most he would apologize. No matter what, in Ming Qi's territory, Prince Rue would give some face to the officials. Su Mingfeng started to feel perturbed again. Prince Rue did not even put Emperor Wenhui in his eyes, so how would he put a small young master of the Su family in his eyes? Moreover, now that the Su family no longer entered officialdom, to Emperor Wenhui, there was no place in the residence of Ping Nanbo that was worth putting in an important position. If something really happened, Emperor Wenhui would not offend Prince Rue for him. Fortunately, there was still a second young master of the Su family, Su Minglang, in the residence of Ping Nanbo. If something really happened to him, the Su family would not have no descendants. But if Prince Rue were to vent his anger on the Su family, what would happen if the entire residence was implicated? Along the way, his imagination ran wild, and Su Mingfeng's back gradually broke out in cold sweat. He did not even know that the bearded guard had brought him to the destination. It was until the bearded guard reminded him, "Young Master Su, we have arrived." Su Mingfeng then suddenly recovered to his senses. This was the backyard of the residence of Prince Rue, and there was a pond in the courtyard. In the winter night, the wind from the pond was very cold when it blew on one's body. Vaguely through the lanterns hanging on the branches, one could see a stone table in the garden, and there were two people sitting at the stone table. It seemed to be a male and a female, but one could not see it clearly. Su Mingfeng subconsciously looked at the bearded guard, and the bearded guard said, "His Highness is waiting at the front and will leave first." Finishing, he did not wait for Su Mingfeng's reply and turned to leave. Su Mingfeng looked at the back of the bearded guard and thought that the guards of the residence of Prince Rue were actually so arrogant. It was no wonder that Prince Rue had that kind of conduct. What kind of master would have what kind of subordinates? Since Prince Rue was not respectful to Emperor Wenhui, the guards of the residence of Prince Rue were also not respectful to the guests. Thinking about it, it seemed that only the little marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and Xie Jingxing would act so unscrupulously in the Ding capital. Thinking of Xie Jingxing, Su Mingfeng's heart jumped again. He looked at the two people in front of the stone table and paused for a moment before finally striding towards those two people. When he got closer, he then discovered that there was a furry white animal lying under the table. Initially, when Su Mingfeng saw that figure, he thought that it was a cat, but when that little cat-like thing heard his movements, it turned its head and roared out, revealing its sharp white teeth. It was a tiger. Su Mingfeng thought that there was actually a tiger raised in the residence of Prince Rue. Even though it was a little tiger, this Prince Rue was really special. Thinking of this, he felt that Prince Rue and Xie Jingxing were not very similar. Su Mingfeng walked to the front of the stone table, and Prince Rue's back was facing him, so the first thing that Su Mingfeng saw was the female seated. That female had delicate features and was graceful and dignified. When the familiar gaze looked over, Su Mingfeng cried out involuntarily, "Shen young lady." It was actually Shen Miao. "Shen young lady, why are you here?" Su Mingfeng could not help but ask. Young Master Su is really meddling too much. A casual voice sounded, and there seemed to be a touch of displeasure. "This Princess Wang Fei is in one's residence. What is wrong?" The 4 words "one's residence" almost made Shen Miao unable to continue drinking her tea. She smiled at Su Mingfeng and nodded her head. "Gentleman Su." Su Mingfeng's gaze then landed on Prince Rui, who had his back facing him. He was doing it lazily, but his posture was unexpectedly tall and slender. With the weak light from the lantern, one could see the fine golden thread that outlined the smooth lines on his collar. Chapter 819. Your Highness Prince Rui, Su Mingfeng said. Prince Rui did not speak, and Su Mingfeng composed himself. With Shen Miao here, his heart was not afraid. Thinking about it, he almost forgot that Shen Miao was now considered as Rui Wang Fei, and from what he saw, Shen Miao's relationship with Prince Rui was not bad. If Prince Rui really had the intention to kill him, Shen Miao would not sit idly by on account of Xie Jingxing. Even though it was somewhat strange to think about it, Su Mingfeng still plucked up his courage and asked, "Today Mingfeng came over to inquire about a matter."
Speak.
The more simple Prince Rui said, the more Su Mingfeng's heart was in a mess. He said, "Your Highness Prince Rui is very similar to an old friend of Mingfeng, but that old friend had disappeared for many years." Mingfeng boldly. He made up his mind and said, "Mingfeng boldly pleads your highness to take off the mask and let Mingfeng resolve the doubts in my heart." Finishing the sentence, Su Mingfeng lowered his head and waited anxiously for the other party's reply. After a moment of silence, there was a voice that rang. It was still a faint voice that did not seem to care. It was low and deep and pleasant to listen to, but every word was like 1,000 caddies that smashed into Su Mingfeng's ears. Prince Rui asked, "The old friend that you mentioned, is it called Xie Jingxing?" Su Mingfeng's heart moved, and there was a burst of ecstasy in his heart, but he forced himself to calm down in a blink of an eye. Prince Rui had stayed in Mingqi for a few months, and Xie Jingxing's name was not small and could be considered as a hero in Mingqi. He and Xie Jingxing were childhood friends, and perhaps someone had told Prince Rui about this matter. He said, "Yes, Xie Jingxing is dead." There was no joy or anger in Prince Rui's voice. "You said that he disappeared?" "Everyone said that he died in the northern Jiang, and I have seen the corpse with my own eyes." Su Mingfeng smiled bitterly, "But I am not willing to believe it." Now that His Highness has appeared, Mingfeng knew that this condition of his was rude and unreasonable, but there are always some things in this world that one must do their best to complete. Facing Prince Rui, Su Mingfeng did not hide anything. He looked at Prince Rui's appearance, and it seemed that he was not a person who pestered endlessly and seemed to be somewhat reasonable. Perhaps she would be moved by his words and treat him especially kindly. The white tiger on the ground gave a low whimper, and Prince Rui stood up from the stone bench. He turned around, and half of his mask glowed coldly in the wind. Su Mingfeng then discovered that Prince Rui was actually half a head taller than him when he stood up. Xie Jingxing was half a head taller than him. At that time, he was a young man dressed in fresh clothes and loved to compete with one another. Su Mingfeng had begged Su Foran to fill half a bowl of rice for him every day, hoping that he could be better than Xie Jingxing. At that time, Xie Jingxing was still rather contemptuous and said, "You want to become the second Su Minglang?" Time passed in a trance. It seemed as if nothing had changed. However, the blue seas turned into mulberry fields. In the end, everything was over. Shen Miao wanted to speak, but stopped. Prince Rui said, "You want to see this prince's face?" Su Mingfeng nodded his head. Prince Rui stretched out his hand to cover the silver mask and slowly took it off. His eyebrows were slanted to the temples, his peach blossom eyes were filled with affection, his nose was sharp, and the lazy smile on his lips was almost the same as yesterday. His appearance had changed slightly, from a beautiful and mischievous youth to a mature, devilishly handsome young man. But at the end it was still him. Xie Jingxing's lips curled up as he smiled and said in a disdainful tone, "Stunned from looking?" Su Mingfeng suddenly felt that his eyes were a little sour. He went forward and suddenly punched Xie Jingxing's shoulder, just like what they often did in the past. His mouth scolded, "Scoundrel. Always deceiving the heavens, and even deceiving me. There is no loyalty." Chapter 820. Xin Miao could not hide the astonishment in her heart. She really did not think that Xie Jingxing would so easily take off his mask in front of Su Mingfeng and admit his identity. Just like in the past in front of Princess Rong Xian. Even if it was one's loved ones, good friends, or best friends, when faced with a sudden change in identity, there would not be any understanding. The more precious the feelings, the more one should not easily test it, because if the result of the test was not something that one could bear, it would be a kind of deep and indelible torture to oneself. If it was Xin Miao herself, perhaps she would not be so straightforward. After all, she did not dare and did not have the courage to accept an unknown result. On this point, she was not as decisive as Xie Jingxing. He was indeed very clear about what she wanted and what she did not want. He forced himself and did not even give himself a chance to hesitate.
You.
How did you become Prince Rue? Su Mingfeng patted his chest. Just now I was still thinking that if Prince Rue had the intention to kill me, one would only lose one's life here. He said, now at least one's life is spared. But his tone was filled with uncontrollable excitement. Xie Jingxing looked at him and said, after 2 years of not seeing you, you have become more and more stupid. Su Mingfeng waved his hands. I knew that you did not die. A scourge lasts for 1,000 years. A person like you should live for 8 to 10,000 years. He sighed again. If it was not that Princess Rong Xian came to look for me that day, and I saw the tiger head bracelet on young Lady Shin's hands, one fear that you would still be kept in the dark. You do not intend to see me anymore? He said angrily, with some anger from not being trusted. Xie Jingxing shrugged his shoulders. Exactly. Su Mingfeng was flustered, but he was often bullied by Xie Jingxing in the past, so he was not angry at this moment. He only said with some doubts, it seems that young Lady Shen had long known of your identity. He smiled and looked at Xin Miao before saying meaningfully, at the beginning I felt that something was not right. Now it can be considered that you have gotten what you wished for and have hidden very deeply. Xin Miao. What exactly do you want to say? Xie Jingxing said impatiently, I still have things to say to your sister-in-law. Xin Miao and Su Mingfeng were shocked by the word sister-in-law at the same time. Su Mingfeng looked at Xin Miao and said, since you are still alive, why did you not tell me about it for these 2 years? Moreover, it seems that Princess Rong Xian is suspicious of your identity. Why did you not take the initiative to tell her, and also your father? Su Mingfeng. Xie Jingxing interrupted his words. I am Prince Rue of the Great Liang. The courtyard fell silent. Xin Miao sighed slightly in her heart. One would have to come to this step. With Xie Jingxing's identity, it was destined that no one would stand on his side in the Ding capital. No matter who it was, when they saw Xie Jingxing's true identity, they would always think of the name of treason. No matter what the truth or difficulties were, no one cared. All they cared about was results and deception. Princess Rong Xian loved Xie Jingxing like her own son, but at the end she could not avoid being on guard and deceived. When Su Mingfeng saw that his old friend was reborn, he was naturally wild with joy, but after a short period of joy, the truth would eventually be revealed. That was when human nature was the most naked, the most cruel, and the most painful. Su Mingfeng looked at Xie Jingxing in puzzlement and asked, what are you talking about? Oh yes, you have now become Prince Rue. Was it that something happened at the northern Jiang battlefield, and you had no choice but to do it? This Prince Rui's identity is indeed noble, but it is not a solution in the long run. You have to. I am Prince Rui of the Great Liang, Xie Jingxing said. The chattering stopped abruptly. Chapter 8:21. The wind blew up the fallen leaves in the courtyard. The white tiger had already curled up in the shack that was built for it to rest. In the starless and moonless night, there was only a faint light from the lantern. Su Mingfeng's gaze was uncertain as he asked hesitantly, "What is the meaning of this?" "My real identity is the Great Liang's Prince Rui, not the son of the residents of the Marquis of Lin and Xieding." Xie Jingxing lightly said, "It is not a stopgap measure." "Impossible." Su Mingfeng blurted out. "You and I have known each other for more than 10 years and were together since childhood. How can I not know that you are the Great Liang's Prince Rui? The heir of the Xie family died at birth, and the real heir of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and is already dead." Xie Jingxing said, "It is not me." Su Mingfeng looked at Xie Jingxing in a daze. His words were somewhat chaotic, as if he himself was unable to differentiate some things. "Your meaning is that from the beginning you are not the son of the Marquis of Lin and someone swapped the crown prince with you, and you have been living in the Ding capital till now, but you are actually not a Mingqi person. You are a Great Liang person, and you are the Great Liang's Emperor Yong, Li's younger brother. You are a prince of the Great Liang. How is this possible?" "This is simply impossible." His words suddenly paused when he saw Xie Jingxing's expression. That familiar, handsome face only had a look of indifference. Su Mingfeng understood Xie Jingxing. When Xie Jingxing was talking about serious matters, he did not like to repeat it, and when he was impatient, he would often have this expression. What he said was true. Su Mingfeng could not say what kind of feeling he had in his heart at this moment, as if it was blocked by a ball of cotton. The joy of seeing an old friend for the first time had completely disappeared. What was left was only emptiness and some inexplicable anger. He asked, "When did you know your identity?" "From memory," Xie Jingxing answered. Su Mingfeng took 2 steps back. "From memory?" he asked. "You knew that you are a Great Liang person long ago." Xie Jingxing was noncommittal. Shun Miao sighed in her heart. Why did Xie Jingxing need to be so honest? In fact, the more he said, the more Su Mingfeng felt that he was being cheated. Sometimes it was easier for oneself and others to accept some lies. But Shun Miao asked herself honestly, if it was her, she would also be as honest as Xie Jingxing. There was no need to lie to people who were very close to him. Sure enough, it was just as Shun Miao expected. After Su Mingfeng heard Xie Jingxing's answer, his expression became extremely complicated. After the surprise and suspicion, it was like the anger of being betrayed gradually surged up. He sneered and asked back, "Oh, then why did you come back now? Could it be that you see that Mingqi is not as good as your Great Liang and still want to have an ambitious footing here?" His words were so harsh that even Shin Miao could not help but cast a sidelong glance. But one's heart was clear that when an outsider looked at a chess game, one would be able to see it clearly. Su Mingfeng suddenly knew so many secrets and would definitely not be able to accept it. Towards the people who were close to one side, people would always hurt them easily. So what if I am? But Xie Jingxing was not one to be humble. Not only did he not stroke Su Mingfeng's hair, he even calmly admitted it. Shun Miao wanted to speak, but after thinking about it, she gave up. A true gentleman did not speak when watching a chess game. Today she would just treat it as watching a show. Su Mingfeng was indeed angrier as he roared at Xie Jingxing. "Today I finally know what is called a traitor and what is called a white-eyed wolf that cannot be tamed. Originally, I thought that you were not close to the Marquis of Lin and since young because of Princess Yuqing. But now it seems that it was you who wanted to draw a clear line with them. You are not the son of the Marquis of Lin but you enjoy everything in the residence of the Marquis of Lin and with a clear conscience. Even the 2 Shu sons of the Xie residence are not as good as you. You keep saying that Princess Rongxian is your relative, but you deceived her and made her feel pain every day, because of the news of your death. You treat me as a brother, but concealed your identity for so many years. One fear that there is a reason for you to be on good terms with me. Chapter 8:22. You do not like Ming-Chi, and do not like the Ding capital. But that is after all the place that raised you. The grace of birth is not as great as the grace of upbringing. You enjoyed everything that Ming-Chi gave you, but turned back to take drastic measures to be the Prince Rui of your Great Liang. Your Great Liang is rich, and the people are strong. Your Great Liang army is strong, but you abandoned everything in Ming-Chi for glory and splendor. Xie Jingxing, you are heartless, and you are a vile person. You are not worthy to be an official, not worthy to be a D-son, and not worthy to be a brother. Scram back to your Great Liang. Enough. Shen Miao suddenly stood up and interrupted Su Mingfeng's words. Su Mingfeng's words were just too hurtful. She turned her head to look at Xie Jingxing. Without the mask on his face, Xie Jingxing's expression could be seen clearly. He was not angry and did not smile. He only calmly looked at Su Mingfeng. It was as if the person that Su Mingfeng was talking about was not him, and it was also as if he did not care about Su Mingfeng's words. Shen Miao's heart suddenly had a few waves. She looked at Su Mingfeng and a ridiculing smile floated on her face. Oh? Young Master Su seemed to be filled with righteousness and couldn't wait to uphold justice. Unfortunately, your so-called white-eyed wolf, in my view, you are also the same. Xie Jingxing was startled. Su Mingfeng was also angry with Shen Miao. What did you say? Say that you are a white-eyed wolf. In Shen Miao's previous life, when she was fighting with Mei Foran in the inner palace, naturally there was no lack of verbal sparring every day. In terms of ridiculing people, even though she was not outstanding, she had learned a lot of things from Mei Foran. She smiled gently and was dignified and steady. The more it was like this, the more it set off Su Mingfeng's rudeness. Her voice was gentle like the wind and drizzle, but every word and sentence were merciless. Before accusing others, it is best to look at yourself first. Gentleman Su feel that Prince Rui is a white-eyed wolf and that Prince Rui is using you. I would also like to ask Gentleman Su, in the beginning in the residence of the Count of Pingnan, how much did Xie Jingxing help you? Ever since you entered officialdom, you did not know how to socialize and socialize. It was Xie Jingxing who paid for you, and when you wanted to learn martial arts, Xie Jingxing helped you hire a martial arts master. When His Majesty wanted to suppress Pingnan Bo Fu, it was he who reminded you, advising Pingnan Bo to retreat. If it was not so, do you think that there is still a residence of Pingnan Bo in Ming-Chi's Ding capital? I'm afraid the grass on his grave is already 10 feet high. You said that Xie Jingxing used you and befriended you for other purposes? In the entire Ding capital, who does not know that you, Su Mingfeng, are Xie Jingxing's childhood friend? Ever since you were young, your body was weak, but no one dared to bully you. Who do you think you are? Is it because of the reputation of the Pingnan Count residence, or is it because you have a childhood sweetheart that no one in the Ding capital dares to provoke? The matters of the world are just that simple. Young Master Su, don't think that my words are not pleasant to hear. Since young, how many roads did Xie Jingxing pay for you, and how many times did he help your Su family? If this is the so-called use, then I also hope that someone can use me? Young Master Su, don't you agree? She was full of smiles, but the words that she said were like rain hitting banana leaves, dripping with coldness. After taking other people's benefits, one would turn around and hit them back, and keep on accusing others. If this is not an ingrate, then what is? Young Master Su, can I also say that you are heartless and unworthy to be a brother? Enjoying everything that the person that you accuse gives you with a clear conscience, do you not feel guilty? Su Mingfeng was not a person who would engage in a battle of words with a female, not to mention that Shen Miao's words were full of ridicule, but it was genuine, causing his face to swell to a purplish-red color. In his extreme anger, along with Shen Miao's words, his mind started to recall the scrolls of images. Chapter 8:23. In all fairness, Xie Jingxing's treatment towards him was indeed very good. If it was not good, Su Mingfeng would not have kept thinking about it for so many years. Xie Jingxing was an arrogant and rude person, unbridled and stubborn. He did things as he pleased, and there was almost nothing that could restrain him. Even though he said that he was ruthless, he would always help out with Su Mingfeng's matters. For example, when someone bullied Su Mingfeng when he was young, Xie Jingxing did not say anything and brought people to beat him up. Even if that person was a child of the imperial family, he still beat him up, and finally others did not dare to bully Su Mingfeng. It was just that even though Xie Jingxing did a lot of things, he never took credit for it and did not even mention it. His younger sister always had a bad attitude, so as time passed, people remembered his bad points, but his good points were gradually forgotten. When Shun Miao finished speaking, her heart was extremely carefree. She did not know why, but when she saw Su Mingfeng criticizing Xie Jingxing, she felt that the scene was very dazzling. Now that she had finished speaking, even though she was somewhat ashamed, she did not regret it. Did Xie Jingxing have any intention to make use of Su Mingfeng? Shun Miao thought that it was definitely not. Otherwise, in the previous lifetime when Emperor Wen Hui ordered the Su family to be exterminated, no one would collect the corpses of Su Yu and his son. Everyone was afraid of Emperor Wen Hui's anger and suspicions. Only Xie Jingxing stood out and buried them. Even at that time, Xie Jingxing was carrying Xie Ding's death in battle. The residence of the Marquis of Lin was in imminent danger, and he himself was about to receive orders to go into battle. Loyal, a true hero, and follow one's heartbeat. That was Fu Ming's evaluation of Xie Jingxing. What the child's eyes saw was the truest things. Shun Miao thought that what Fu Ming said was as such. If this kind of person was scolded by Su Mingfeng as not worthy to be a brother, Shun Miao would feel that it was not worth it for Xie Jingxing. An identity was enough to change everyone's eyes. The title of Prince Rui was glorious, but in fact the things that one had to bear, how many people would not have a change of expression and accept it while talking and laughing? She did not discover that when she was speaking, after Xie Jingxing was slightly surprised, his gaze landed on her, and he had a joyful smile. Su Mingfeng looked at Xie Jingxing and was unable to speak. His emotions were complicated and sad. His good friend was still alive, and that was something that should have been enough to make him happy. But for some reason, he was not in the mood to be happy at all. Xie Jingxing glanced at him and said, "I do not owe you anything. Even if I do, I've already paid it off." Xie Jingxing said, "The residence of the Marquis of Lin is a big tree that attracts the wind, thus the Emperor has the intention to suppress it. The Xie family's army under the Marquis of Lin is millions, and if the father is compassionate and the son is filial, the son inherits the father's business. The Emperor would not be able to sleep well. The closer one walks, the faster one dies. I still want to live for a few more years, so I will help the Marquis of Lin and to protect a Marquis residence." The grace of raising in exchange for the stability of the Marquis residence, is it worth it? Xie Jingxing's lips curled up as he asked. Su Mingfeng was speechless from the question. If I did not do this, Xie Ding was originally a thorn in the Emperor's eyes and would die one day. The residence of the Marquis of Lin would be charged with a groundless crime and be splashed with dirty water. Even though the son was dead and there was no more descendants, at least the residence of the Marquis of Lin was still there, so the Emperor let the residence of the Marquis of Lin off. Speaking of the residence of the Marquis of Lin, it is still a clean and bright house. Xie Jingxing ridiculed, "There is always a mother and son relationship with Princess Yuqing. For this little bit of relationship, the only thing that can be done is to protect the dignity of the Marquis of Lin and the dignity of the residence of the Marquis of Lin." And Shun Miao looked at Xie Jingxing's handsome face. He said it carelessly, as if all these were not important at all. But in the past years, these unspoken words could only be placed in the heart. Xie Jingxing was an honest person, but he was also the most dishonest person. He honestly stated the truth and the course of events, but what was not honest was his own heart. He did not mention the grievances that he had suffered and did not mention his worries and depression. Thus, in everyone's eyes, He was a game of life and was cynical. It seemed that there was nothing in the world that could stump him. However, when he was arranging everything, in order to maintain the clarity of the Marquis residence, he was forced to bear the name of disobedience, presumptuous, no respect for elders and no respect for one's father and elder brothers. Su Mingfeng was stunned when he heard it. My life in the Great Liang is not as simple as what you think. He looked at the icicles on the tree and casually said, if it was you, you would not be able to stay for a day before coming back crying to look for mother. Su Mingfeng was so angry that his throat was stuck. There are no benefits in the world, for no reason. One must fight for what one has obtained. Su Mingfeng, your days are comfortable, and you cannot use this kind of comfort to guess me. What I have experienced is more than what you can imagine. He sighed softly, but there was still a smile on his face. That pair of peach blossom eyes were slightly curved, and the eyelashes were hanging down to a nice arc. From this angle, his brows were gentle, and he was so beautiful that it was as if he had walked out from a painting. However, there was not a bit of a smile in that pair of eyes. It was bitingly cold like the winter wind. The most important thing is that Ming Qi did not nurture me and only erase me,
he said.
Chapter 8:24. Su Mingfeng staggered away. When he left, it was as if he had experienced a huge change and was almost out of his wits. Xin Miao wanted to say a few words to Xie Jingxing, but Xie Jingxing returned his casual look and smiled as he urged her to return to the residence to rest, as if he did not want to mention the matter again. Xin Miao was helpless and could only follow his intentions. Some people liked to share their own painful experiences with others to gain the sympathy of others. However, the things that really made one sad were not willing to share it. Recalling it once was like stabbing a knife into one's heart. Xie Jingxing most likely did not like to expose his weakness in front of others, so in the eyes of outsiders, he was still powerful and omnipotent. But Shen Miao was able to hear something from his sentence. The most important thing is that Ming Qi did not nurture me and only erase me. Until they returned to the Shun mansion, Shen Miao's heart was thinking about this matter. What was the meaning of Ming Qi only erasing Xie Jingxing? What floated in Shen Miao's mind was the matters of the past lifetime. In the past lifetime, the residence of the Marquis of Lineage finally collapsed, and both Xie Ding and Xie Jingxing died in battle. The remaining Xie Chongqiao and Xie Chongwu were promoted, and Madame Feng's status also rose. In this lifetime, even though the three sons of the Xie family were gone, at least Xie Ding was still around. As long as Xie Ding was still around, the residence of the Marquis of Lineage was not considered to have collapsed. If Xie Ding had the heart to remarry, at this age, it was possible to have another son. Even though it looked miserable, but as compared to the past lifetime, it was much better. What was the difference between this lifetime and the past lifetime? It seemed to have started from 2 years ago. In the past lifetime, Xie Jingxing did not go to the northern Jiang 2 years ago, but a few years later. The time was brought forward, and it seemed to have caused some things to change. So, what was it that caused Xie Jingxing to make this decision? Was it because of herself? Shen Miao pondered. But what did Ming Qi push for? In the past lifetime, when Shen Miao knew about the matters of the Xie family, she sighed and lamented. She had once suspected that the imperial family was involved in the matter, but was not willing to delve into it. Other than being a scoundrel, the Xie father and son were not loyal to the Ming Qi. If it was because of guarding against the overshadowing of the Lord, then the imperial family would be too heartless. But now, this conjecture resurfaced in his mind. Assuming that the imperial family targeted the residence of the Marquis of Lineage right from the start, the Xie father and son would die in battle, and the residence of the Marquis of Lineage would be burnt to ashes. This was the ending that the imperial family had prepared for the Xie family. Then, because Xie Jingxing took the initiative to request to go out to battle, the royal family's plan was brought forward. The imperial family fulfilled their wish of letting Xie Jingxing die in battle, but at this time Xie Ding was still alive. Not only that, Xie Ding still had 2 sons, so the imperial family's ambition towards the residence of the Marquis of Lineage had not disappeared. Fortunately, Xieding was unable to recover after Xie Jingxing's death, thus the plan to completely destroy the residence of the Marquis of Lin and was not urgent. 2 years later, the 2 sons of the Xie family died in an accident. From then on, Xieding had no chance of making a comeback. There was no harm in keeping him alive. The royal family changed their previous plan and even took the initiative to appease him. This was to show the royal family's benevolence and sympathy for their subjects. If one were to say that Xie Jingxing had already expected everything that would happen in the future, then the expedition 2 years ago was not done recklessly. Just like what he said to Su Mingfeng, this was the only way to protect the residents of the Marquis of Linen. But these were all Xin Miao's own thoughts, and no one knew what the truth was. She was thinking that she should find an opportunity to ask Xie Jingxing. In the past lifetime, she did not want to delve into it, but in this lifetime, she was very curious. Chapter 8:25. This night, Shen Miao's thoughts were heavy and Su Mingfeng was suffering. Naturally, there were others who were not in the mood to sleep. In the residence of Prince Ding, it was brightly lit throughout the night. Fu Xiaoyi sat on the high seat and looked at the subordinate who came to report and slowly asked, Su Mingfeng went to the residence of Prince Rui. The subordinate said, exactly. After coming out, the heir of the Count of Ping Nan seemed to be stimulated and was in a daze. Fu Xiaoyi waved his hands, and the subordinate withdrew. The advisor by his side came forward and asked, the heir of the Count of Ping Nan went to the residence of Prince Rui in the middle of the night. Could it be that he had a private relationship with Prince Rui? The residence of the Count of Ping Nan was no longer in officialdom. If Prince Rui really wanted to find someone to cooperate with, he would not be able to find him. Fu Xiaoyi's gaze turned cold. The Su family was originally an excellent chess piece. If it was not for Su Mingfeng's sudden serious illness and the Su family gradually withdrew from the officialdom, it would not be to this extent. However, he said, the Su family was considered lucky to escape a calamity. The advisor said, speaking of which, the illness of the heir of the Count of Ping Nan was really strange. Because the heir of the Count of Ping Nan was ill, the Count of Ping Nan resigned and now gradually retired. There was almost no news of them in the Ding capital. Fu Xiaoyi laughed. Could it be that you think that Su Mingfeng was really ill? Seeking your highness guidance. Su Mingfeng and the residents of the Marquis of Lin and Xie Jingxing are close friends. Fu Xiaoyi said, it was strange that the Su family suddenly withdrew from the officialdom. Especially Su Mingfeng. At that time he was flourishing but suddenly fell seriously ill and did not even fight for it and directly resigned. He said that he would not live for more than a few years. You see, 2 years have passed and is not Su Mingfeng still living well? The residents of the Count of Ping Nan was clearly putting their own interests first and retreating bravely. Naturally, there was someone reminding them. The residents of the Count of Ping Nan and the residents of the Marquis of Lin and have always been on good terms. Other than the reminders of close friends, others would not meddle in other people's business. But, the advisor asked in puzzlement, the residents of the Marquis of Lin and Xieding, why was it Xie Jingxing who reminded them and not Xieding? Xieding cannot even protect himself. Fu Xiaoyi drank a mouthful of tea. Xieding is arrogant and arrogant. Relying on his outstanding military achievements, he repeatedly acted presumptuously in front of Imperial Father. Imperial Father had long had the intention to get rid of him. If Xieding was smarter, he would restrain himself. But you see, when did he restrain himself in the Ding capital? But this Xie Jingxing, Fu Xiaoyi narrowed his eyes, cannot be underestimated. Isn't Xie Jingxing also unbridled and arrogant in his actions? The advisor said, in the Ding capital, when mentioning little Xie Marquis, everyone would know that he is a stubborn and bold person. That's right, but don't forget one point, Fu Xiaoyi replied. From the beginning to the end, he did not enter officialdom. Everyone said that Xie Jingxing did not enter officialdom because of Xieding and deliberately delayed his life, but I think that is not the case. That time at the chrysanthemum banquet, Xie Jingxing alone dealt with his two Shu younger brothers, and the military strategy that he displayed was admirable. He had unparalleled talent, but he was unwilling to display it. What was this called? This is called concealing one's abilities. How many years has Xie Ding lived, and how many years has Xie Jingxing lived? Xie Ding had lived to such an old age, but would still be blinded by the riches and honor of the residence of the Marquis of Lin, and Xie Jingxing was so young but was able to clearly assess the situation. Xie Jingxing was the most terrifying person in the residence of the Marquis of Lin. So the person who reminded the Su family was not Xie Ding but Xie Jingxing. Only Xie Jingxing. The advisor looked at Fu Xiaoyi. Is your highness overestimating Xie Jingxing? Even if he reminded the Su family, it would not prove anything. Cannot prove what? Fu Xiaoyi looked at him and asked back, then how about adding the Xie family's army? Xie family's army? The advisor was puzzled and immediately thought of something before looking at Fu Xiaoyi in shock. Your highness's meaning is... Chapter 8:26. In short, the most terrifying person in the residence of the Marquis of Lin and is not Xie Ding but Xie Jingxing, Fu Xiaoyi said. When this person was still young, he already had enough ambition and brains. If he is given a certain amount of power, one fear that there would be a change in the Ding capital. With him around, this bone of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and will never be bitten off. Fortunately, Xie Jingxing is already dead. When the advisor heard Fu Xiaoyi's words, he heaved a sigh of relief with lingering fear. The current residence of the Marquis of Lin and would not be able to create any waves. That's right. Fu Xiaoyi said, for dangerous enemies, it is always necessary to kill them before they grow up. However, he changed the topic. What I am curious about now is why would Su Mingfeng and Prince Rui mix together?
Not only that.
The advisor continued his words. Princess Rong Xian also seemed to be investigating Prince Rui. Su Mingfeng's people even went to the Xin mansion to guard, as if they were monitoring fifth Xin young ladies' every move. Princess Rong Xian is also the same. Su Mingfeng, Prince Rui, Princess Rong Xian, and Xin Miao. Fu Xiaoyi said, these few people must have a special relationship. Especially Xin Miao and Prince Rui. Now they were betrothed by Imperial Father. I know Imperial Father's temperament very well. Once he has set his sights on something, he will not hand it over to others. The Xin family is already in Imperial Father's pocket, and Xin Miao's marriage will not be given to outsiders. How would he bestow her to Prince Rui as a Wangfei without rhyme or reason? No matter how one looks at it, it is not a good deal for Ming Qi. Your Highness means... The advisor muttered. This marriage must have been initiated by Prince Rui. Not only that, Prince Rui must have used some method to force Imperial Father to make this decision. Fu Xiaoyi suddenly smiled strangely. Don't you find it strange? Previously, I suspected that Prince Rui and Xin Miao seemed to have an unusual relationship, but felt that Prince Rui was not one who would change the plans of the world for a woman. But now it seems that I was wrong. Prince Rui indeed had other thoughts towards Xin Miao. That's why he racked his brains to get an imperial edict. Nothing happens for no reason in this world. Su Mingfeng and Princess Rong Xian had never left the Ding capital before, so it was impossible for them to know Prince Rui. But their attitude towards Prince Rui seemed to be somewhat familiar. Also, Prince Rui and Xin Miao had only met a few times, so why would he do this for her? Could it be that Prince Rui had come to Mingqi before? The advisor turned pale with fright. Your Highness's meaning is that Prince Rui had been to the Ding capital before? You've seen them before and you're even friend with them? Of course I can't do it openly. Fu Xiaoyi smiled. Perhaps we were deceived in the beginning, or perhaps Prince Rui was living in the Ding capital with the identity of a Mingqi person. Otherwise, why would he wear a mask this time? One heard that everyone in the imperial family of the Great Liang are astonishingly beautiful, so why does Prince Rui dare not show his true face to others? I think his face must have been recognized by us. The advisor was silent. He seemed to be shocked by the news and could not speak. Fu Xiaoyi smiled again. But these are just my own guesses. I can't be sure now. There is no harm. I have already sent people to continue guarding. It is just that no one is looking forward to Prince Rui's secret. He paused for a moment and suddenly thought of something before asking, "How is Peiling now?" The advisor was startled and recalled for a moment before saying, "He still refuses to let it go." Fu Xiaoyi smiled. "Continue. Just do not let him die." He continued, "These people that the Shun family found, each and every one of their bones, are really hard. It makes one envious." Chapter 8:27. The advisor's entire body turned cold when he heard it, but did not dare to say anything more and respectfully retreated. Another few days passed by. The Shin family finally accepted the fact that Shen Miao is about to marry Prince Rui. Since the marriage had been set, the marriage invitation was sent and the list of betrothal gifts was also given. The female side would have to show a little importance to this marriage. Even though Shun Xian and Luo Shuiyan did not approve of Shen Miao's marriage to Prince Rui, but if one did not prepare well, others would think that they did not value Shen Miao. Fighting with his last breath, Shun Xian was not willing to let others look down on his daughter. It was just that the list of betrothal gifts that Prince Rui sent over was really shocking, so the amount of dowry to prepare became a problem. Both Shun Xian and Luo Shuiyan were military officers and had outstanding military merits in the early years, thus they received a lot of rewards. Both of them were not in the Ding capital all year round, and other than the portion that was given to Old Shin Foreign, there was almost no movement. There were only 2 children in the residence and Shun Xian and Luo Shuiyan did not favor anyone, so everyone split it in half. Actually, it was considered extravagant. But in the 2 years in the Shaochun city, they had invested a lot of money into the Luo family's army, thus the Shin family's wealth was not as solid as before. The only thing to blame was the list of betrothal gifts that Prince Rui sent over. Even during the Shun family's heyday, it was hard to catch up to it. Previously, Shun Xiao still thought that Prince Rui was bragging because this list of betrothal gifts was enough for an official to marry 10 daughters-in-law from a noble family. Perhaps Prince Rui was joking with the Shun family, but on the second day Tai Yi received Prince Rui's orders to send 2 golden geese, which almost made Shin Xiao stagger in shock. That was something that the Empress Dowager wanted to treasure. Thus Prince Rui used it as a prize for the betrothal gifts and casually found a box and sent it over. From then on, everyone believed that the Great Liang was really rich, and Prince Rui really squandered money like dirt. This list of betrothal gifts was not a joke. Shin Miao's dowry, this matter was big. Shin Xiao took the initiative to give Shin Miao the money that he was saving for his wife's marriage. One must not be short of ambition when one is poor. How can one let younger sister's dowry be less than half of Prince Rui's betrothal gifts? If this was to be brought to the Great Liang, one would be looked down upon by others. Our Shin family's young ladies must do their best. Prince Rui giving betrothal gifts like this and our dowry is small. Will he look down on us? He couldn't be careless about the dowry. I still have some antiques in my house that I can pawn. Although we are poor, we can't lose face. Shin Xian deeply agreed. Shin Miao. In any case, the Shun family was considered as one of the largest families in the Ding capital. Why was it that in Shun Xiao's mouth, it seemed that they were destitute and had to sell the furnishings in the house to gather the dowry? If word of this got out, wouldn't they be laughing their heads off? Because it was the end of the year, the big and small matters in the Ding capital were much more relaxed, and Shin Miao's marriage was personally decreed by Emperor Wenhui. Perhaps it was because he knew that the Shin family was dissatisfied with this marriage. Emperor Wenhui specially gave Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan a period of leave to accompany Shin Miao and return after Shin Miao's marriage was over. Even if Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan did not have the emperor's approval, their thoughts were all on Shin Miao, so naturally they were happy and relaxed. Shun Xiao and Luo Ling were in the military ministry and had basically done almost the same at the end of the year. These days, they were either accompanying Luo Shuiyan to buy New Year's goods or helping Xin Miao. The whole family were chatting in the hall, and the cook had made some new snacks, and the charcoal fire in the room was burning brightly. Luo Tan smiled as she looked at Xin Miao. Youngest Biao's sister, you'll be getting married after the end of the year. Even though it is too late to sow the dowry now, but you have to prepare for yourself. Tomorrow, let the embroidery maids in the pavilion come over to measure your figure, and after the measurements are done, the horses will be whipped so that the clothes will be ready. Chapter 8:28. When Ming-Chi's females got married, they would need to embroider their own wedding dress. Generally speaking, those who were engaged early would start to embroider for themselves a few years ago. Those who were engaged later would let the tailor make the wedding dress, and they would symbolically embroider a few designs, which was considered to be done by themselves. Only then would there be a harmonious and beautiful meaning. Originally, Xin Miao's marriage was not urgent in the Xin family, and after the end of the year, they would start to look for suitable young talents, and at that time Xin Miao would start to embroider her own wedding dress. Who knew that with Emperor Wen Hui's imperial edict, everything was messed up. Now it was impossible for Xin Miao to personally embroider a wedding dress, thus it was necessary to implement these early. Luo Shuiyan patted her head and said in annoyance, "These days I almost forgot about this matter."
Tanner is right.
Jiao Jiao's wedding dress needs to be prepared. I am not very familiar with the Ding capital's embroidery lady. Later I will ask my good foreign. She knows the best where the clothes and jewelry are. Jiao Jiao's wedding dress must not be sloppy. Finishing, she sized up Xin Miao and smiled. Jiao Jiao's figure is slender and would look good in the wedding dress. When Xin Miao heard that, her mind was filled with the words you will know after a hug that day when Xie Jingxing pulled her into his embrace. She could not help but feel that her face was somewhat hot. Xin Xiu asked, "Younger sister, why is your face so red? Do you need to call a physician over to take a look?" Luo Ling's eyes dimmed, and he lowered his head and did not make a sound. Luo Tan was giggling with Luo Shuiyan about the wedding dress embroidered patterns when she saw a servant outside rushing in. "Foreign, master, there is someone outside seeking an audience. Did not it was said that there will not be any guests these few days, and the doors will be closed?" Shen Xian said unhappily. Why was it not stopped? He wanted to enjoy the few remaining family time, so he did not meet anyone who came to the Shen mansion. The servant was almost crying. It is His Highness Prince Rue of the Great Liang." Luo Tan's eyes widened. Shen Xiu stood up with a whoosh and asked with a murderous look, "What is he here for?" The servant said, This one did not ask. Before his voice landed, one heard a low and sweet voice from behind the servant. "A wedding dress." A tall and straight figure walked out from behind the servant. The servants in the Shen mansion did not have delicate features, but each and every one of them were upright and awe-inspiring. After mixing with Xin Xiu for a long time, there was some valiant air about them. However, when compared to the person behind him, he immediately looked a little dispirited. His purple gold robe fluttered in the wind. His smile carried a bit of contempt, but it did not make people feel disgusted. It seemed to be a bit cynical. However, the silver mask faintly shone with a cold light, giving him a bit of unfathomable profoundness. Even if he couldn't see the person's face, the outline was still very good, especially when he walked over leisurely, step by step, elegant as a bone, lazy and noble, but there was a strong light that could not be ignored. He said, "Prince Rue." He was so arrogant and presumptuous even when he introduced himself. Shen Xiu almost pulled out his sword. He slapped the table, and the desserts on the table shook 3 times as he asked, "You are Prince Rue?" Prince Rue nodded. "Why do you want to marry my sister? What conspiracy do you have?" Shen Xiu shouted. Luo Tan's chin almost dropped down. Shen Xiu's hostility towards Prince Rue was really too big. But even though everyone had this idea in their hearts, to ask it in front of others, would it be too impolite? Jiao Jiao is gentle and sensible, dignified and generous. I have admired for a long time and was anxious to marry. Fortunately, the Emperor's benevolence is vast and powerful and did not disgrace the mission. He slowly said with a smile. Chapter 829. Shen Miao could not help but tremble. She was really not used to Xie Jingxing speaking in such a gentle tone. One must know that when they were not familiar with each other, every time Xie Jingxing saw her, he would probe, look at her coldly and ridicule her. Shen Xian and Shen Qiu suddenly flew into a rage. Prince Rui's words on the surface was praising Shen Miao, and also said that he admired Shen Miao, but the more he said it, the more it did not feel right. What was the boundless grace of the Emperor? What did it mean to not fail the mission? Others did not know, but they were very clear. It was obviously Prince Rui who forced Emperor Wen Hui to write down the imperial edict, and the imperial grace was coerced. The imperial grace was not disgraced, but whose mission was not disgraced? Shen Qiu and Shen Xian were like two firecrackers that were lacking a spark to explode. This Prince Rui had done all kinds of bad things, so why did he come here to pretend to be a big-tail wolf? Luo Shuiyan's gaze softened. The way a woman looks at a man and a man looks at a man are different. When women look at men, they look at the details. Prince Rui did not use this prince, but used I. He did not use fifth Shen young lady to address Shen Miao, but used Jiao Jiao. If it was purely to make use of the Shen family's power, Prince Rui had already obtained what he wanted, and there was no need for this. Regardless of whether he was sincere or just putting on an act, it was good that he was willing to put in the effort. For example, Fu Xiuyi. At that time Shen Miao was in love with Fu Xiuyi, but Fu Xiuyi was teasing Shen Miao and was neither close nor distant. He did not directly reject but did not accept and was not willing to put in effort and was not willing to please. So the reason why the Shen family did not want Shen Miao and Fu Xiuyi to be together, other than Fu Xiuyi's own identity that would drag the Shen family into the water, it was also because Fu Xiuyi did not love Shen Miao at all. If he loved someone, he would be willing to put in effort for her. If he didn't want to spend even a little bit of his attention on someone else now, how could he hope for the future? Luo Shuiyan looked at Prince Rui. Since Prince Rui was willing to put in the effort, it was much better than what she thought. What's more, if one were to talk about appearance and temperament, it was really hard for Prince Rui to make others have any ill feelings towards him. Compared to Fu Xiuyi, who made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze, but also carried the airs of a prince, always smooth and slick. Prince Rui, this person, was unbridled and lazy in his actions, but one could see that he had some genuine temperament. This kind of true nature came from the royal family, which was even more precious. Luo Shuiyan hoped that the husband that Shen Miao would marry would not face Shen Miao with a false face. She said, "Your Highness Prince Rui, my name is Yuan, courtesy named Jingxing," Prince Rui said. "Fern can call me Jingxing." Shen Miao almost choked on her tea. Luo Shuiyan was a little surprised. The people of the royal family were very particular about rules. Even blood brothers had to pay attention to this and that. The people of the Great Liang were considered as very noble guests in Mingqi, especially Prince Rui, who was the younger brother of Emperor Yongle. One did not think that he would let others call him by his courtesy name. Only those who had a good relationship would allow others to call them by their given name. Luo Shuiyan's gaze towards Prince Rui became even more gentle as she said, "Jingxing, take a seat first." She then instructed Jingzhe, "Serve the tea." Shen Qiu and Shen Xian looked at Luo Shuiyan in shock and could not understand why Luo Shuiyan would be so good to this Prince Rui in such a short period of time. When Luo Ling, who was at the side, saw this, he sized him up. "Jingxing." Luo Tan suddenly spoke. "Isn't this the name of the heir of the Marquis of Lin in residence in the Ding capitals?" Shen Miao held the teacup and felt somewhat powerless in her heart. Xie Jingxing was really audacious to the extreme. He actually dared to say his courtesy name here. Did he feel that since Su Mingfeng and Princess Ming and already knew of his real identity, Why not let more people know about it? Anything that was related to his identity would perhaps arouse the suspicion of others. Not only did Xie Jingxing not avoid it, he even came forward. Even though she was drinking tea, Shen Miao felt that she was almost drunk. Shen Qiu's heart was filled with indignation. Seeing that Luo Shuiyan gave up her seat to Prince Rui and let the servants serve tea, he was already unhappy, and when he heard Luo Tan's words, he said, "Correct. Prince Rui definitely do not know who is the heir of the residence of the Marquis of Linen?" Prince Rui turned his head to look at him. "Oh?
Who is that?"
He is also called Xie Jingxing and is the eldest son of the Marquis of Linen residence. Others say that the South Xie and the North Shen, their Xie family is a military aristocratic family that is on par with our Shen family. Xie Jingxing is the little marquis of the Xie family, and he is a rare young talent. In the beginning, he was able to defeat a number of people with just one move. Not to mention his literary and military skills, he was also born with a handsome face. He can be considered as a young talent that everyone in Mingqi looks up to. Those who know of him would say good things about him. Shen Qiu sighed. Unfortunately, the heavens are jealous of talents and fell early in the northern Jiang battlefield. He changed the topic and looked provocatively at Prince Rui. One do not know what is the feeling of Your Highness Prince Rui to have the same name as such a person? That person is unparalleled in literary and military skills and has matchless looks. What are the chances of you winning? Shen Miao. Hearing Major General Shen's words, it seems that you admire that little marquis, Xie a lot? Prince Rui slowly asked. Of course. Shen Qiu said it vehemently, and did not care about Luo Shuiyan's frequent winks at him. Instead, he saw Shen Xian's encouraging gaze and continued, "He is the hero in my heart, and no one can replace him." Shen Miao face-bombed. If it was possible, she really wanted to pretend that she did not know Shen Qiu. Looking at Xie Jingxing again, he must be secretly very refreshed. Chapter 830. Shen Qiu fiercely praised Xie Jingxing in front of Prince Rui, and when an ordinary person was mercilessly criticized, their face would not look good. Prince Rui was wearing a mask so that people could not see his face clearly. However, everyone could clearly see that the corner of his mouth was slightly raised, and his voice was very gentle and polite. The most important thing was that his eyes could not lie. In Prince Rui's eyes, there was actually some joy. Pleasure? Shen Qiuji spoke till his mouth was dry, but not only did he not see Prince Rui revealing an embarrassed expression, instead he seemed to be in agreement. So to speak, it is indeed a pity. Shen Qiu was very dispirited and became more vigilant towards this Prince Rui. But Luo Shuiyan was very satisfied. She was not as childish as Shen Qiu and was not as picky as Shen Xian. Looking at Prince Rui, she was not angry at Shen Qiu's nonsense. People would always judge if a person was good or not, but Luo Shuiyan had been with Prince Rui for a short period of time and felt that Prince Rui was not bad. He looked very handsome and refined, but his words were not bashful or pretentious. There was a kind of sloppy heroism about him that made people have a good impression of him. It was said that the more a mother-in-law looked at her son-in-law, the more satisfied she became. In Luo Shuiyan's mind, Prince Rui quickly took the lead. In Luo Shuiyan's heart, he was more steady than Su Mingfeng, more straightforward than the Crown Prince, more magnanimous than Feng Zixian, and more than Luo Ling. Luo Ling was one of them, so there was no need to talk about it. Not only was Luo Shuiyan satisfied with Prince Rui, Luo Tan was also very satisfied with her own brother-in-law. Her mind was filled with strange things and asked Prince Rui a lot of novel information about the Great Liang. This Prince Rui did not have much patience with Emperor Wen Hui during the tribute banquet, and when he wanted to leave, he would leave. But when he wanted to stay, he would answer Luo Tan's questions. Previously, Luo Tan remembered Prince Rui saving Shen Miao's life, and at this moment the more she looked, the more she felt that only Prince Rui was worthy of Shen Miao. She said, "I see that brother-in-law and Biao youngest sister are extremely compatible." With Biao youngest sister's temperament, Only brother-in-law's good interest can cover it. As soon as the two words brother-in-law came out, the room fell silent. Prince Rui was after all a relative of the imperial family, and in comparison, Luo Tan's identity was not worth mentioning. Luo Tan was naturally carefree and did not realize what she had said, but Luo Shuiyan and Shin Xian subconsciously looked at Prince Rui's reaction. Prince Rui's lips slightly hooked up and readily accepted, many thanks to Biao older sister's kindness. Cousin Shin Qiu was flustered and exasperated. Who is your Biao older sister? Don't shout. Brother Qiu, what are you talking about? Luo Tan glared at him and said with a smile, well, I'm younger than you. It's weird for you to call me cousin. You'd better call me Cousin Luo. Shin Qiu stared angrily at Prince Rui. This person relied on his good skin and his status to attract females everywhere. Luo Shuiyan and Luo Tan had been tricked by this person. Luo Ling looked at the chaotic situation in front of him and felt that it was somewhat funny, but as he laughed and laughed, he thought of something and could no longer laugh. He looked at Shen Miao with a bitter expression. Shen Miao was thinking about Luo Tan's words just now, and her heart was somewhat inconceivable. What kind of wrong impression did Luo Tan have of Xie Jingxing that she actually felt that Xie Jingxing was a person with a good temperament? She did not know that in the beginning Xie Jingxing was also threatening and ridiculing, and every time she interacted with him, it was like walking on a tightrope, and one was unable to grasp the other party's thoughts. If Luo Tan saw Xie Jingxing's actions of silencing people without batting an eyelid, one feared that she would not be able to say those words anymore. Shen Xian saw that Luo Shuiyan and Prince Rui were talking more and more intimately, and his heart did not feel good. He deliberately coughed twice and forcefully interrupted their conversation before asking Prince Rui dryly, "Did you not say that you came over to deliver the wedding dress?
Why?
Now you feel that our Shin family's tea is good, and deliberately came over to drink?" Chapter 831. Luo Shuiyan heard that his words were not pleasant to hear and glared at Shin Xian before turning her head to Prince Rui and spoke in a gentle tone that she had not used to Shin Xian for decades. "Jingxing, did you specially come over today to deliver the wedding dress to Jiao Jiao?" The marriage-bestowing imperial edict came in a rush, and I think that Jiao Jiao would not have time to embroider her own wedding dress. Coincidentally, when I first came to the Ding capital, imperial older brother let me bring along the best seamstress and tailor in the Great Liang. If one were to meet a young lady that one likes, one must give her the best wedding dress in the world when one marries her back. His smile was shallow and his pair of eyes were as gentle as spring. The wedding dress is already done and had been done for 3 months. Now it is brought over for foreign to take a look. 3 months? Shin Miao was surprised for a moment and suddenly remembered that a few days ago, when Xie Jingxing hugged her and said that he wanted to measure the dress. Now that the wedding dress was made 3 months ago, one feared that he already knew her measurements at that time, so why the need to do so much? Sure enough, he was just spouting nonsense again. She actually believed it and was taken advantage of. Thinking of this, Shen Miao glared at him angrily. Xie Jingxing smiled gently. This little action was seen by Luo Shuiyan, and her heart became happier. Now this marriage could not be changed even if one wanted to, thus she could only find ways to comfort herself. Who knew that when she saw Prince Rui today, she felt that this person was not bad and felt much more gratified. Now looking at the actions of these two people, it was not like children playing around. Her own daughter always put on the airs of an old person and did not have the naivety of a young female. But in front of this Prince Rui, she showed the side of a young female, and that Prince Rui seemed to dote on Shin Miao a lot. Perhaps this marriage was a match made in heaven. In Luo Shuiyan's heart, Prince Rui was at least 1,000 times higher than Fu Xiuyi. Just as she was thinking, Shin Qiu cried out at the side, 3 months? It was obvious that the marriage-bestowing imperial edict was just passed down not long ago. You are clearly lying. Could it be that you have foresight and knew 3 months ago that you want to marry younger sister? Moreover, how do you know younger sister's measurements? To take an unsuitable wedding dress, no matter how good it looks, younger sister would not wear it. Shen Miao also looked at Xie Jingxing, as she also wanted to hear how Xie Jingxing would deal with Shen Qiu's question. Xie Jingxing was indeed an expert, and only said, 3 months ago I met Jiao Jiao on the streets by chance. At that time I caught a glimpse of her, and made up my mind to not marry other than Jiao Jiao. Imperial older brother only told me to send the wedding dress to my beloved young lady, but did not say that I can only send it after marrying. I might as well marry her in the end. When he finished speaking, his voice was incomparably cheerful. He only glanced at Shen Qiu, but it was full of provocation. Shen Qiu was not Xie Jingxing's opponent when it came to talking. These words were beautifully said by Xie Jingxing, but he himself did not gain any benefits. As for the size, Xie Jingxing smiled. If you have the heart to look for it, you'll definitely find it. He gestured for Tai Yi to come forward, and Tai Yi trotted out of the room. After a while, he came back with a huge box and placed it on the table. The box was quite big and seemed to be made of fragrant wood. A faint fragrance of pear blossoms wafted out from it, refreshing the mind. Everyone involuntarily gathered around the table, thinking that the wedding dress would most likely be inside. Even though Shen Miao was usually calm, there was some anticipation in her heart. In the previous lifetime, the wedding dress was embroidered by her, so she was especially attentive to Fu Xiuyi's wedding. She also wanted to have a splendid and gorgeous wedding. After all, the most beautiful moment of a female's life seemed to be the moment when she was the bride. But at that time Fu Xiuyi was still concealing his incompetence and requested for it to be simple, and the wedding should not be publicized. Thus, she could only put away her thoughts of wanting to be gorgeous, and embroidered the wedding dress in a simple style with plain patterns. Chapter 832. But after all, she was a female that was full of yearning for the future, and was very fond of beauty. Thus she thought of an idea and used dark red silk to embroider the twin lotus flowers on the outside of the red dress. She also embroidered some peach blossoms on the inside of the dress. Because the dress was inside the outer garment, others could not see it. The twin lotus flowers on the red dress was also embroidered with red silk, so ordinary people would not be able to see it. The entire dress was of a plain and simple style, but her heart was very proud of her little trick. She thought that after the nuptial chamber at night, when husband and wife whispered to each other, she would let Fu Xiuyi guess and see if Fu Xiuyi could guess the pattern on the wedding dress. Fu Xiuyi would eventually see her clever and dexterous side and slowly fall in love with her. But at the end, when the lights were bright that night, she waited in the bridal chamber for the entire night until the red candles dried up and her heart turned cold, but she did not see Fu Xiuyi. In the morning of the second day, she was informed that Fu Xiuyi was drunk last night and stayed the night in the study. She did not sleep the entire night and had to enter the palace to pay respects to the emperor and empress. In a daze, she made a fool of herself and made Fu Xiuyi indignant. After giving her the cold shoulder for 2 to 3 months, Fu Xiuyi finally touched her. That wedding dress was the beginning of her pain. From the grievances of that night of marriage, her countless grievances started to cover the sky and cover the earth. Shen Miao had always felt that when one person treated another well, the other person's heart would be warmed up. Even if one did not like it, one would always be moved by the good treatment without any consideration of return. But there was such a kind of person who would enjoy everything that others gave them with a clear conscience but would despise others for not doing well. That wedding dress, Shen Miao and the other young female's happy and secret thoughts were finally not known by anyone. She wanted to ask, "Husband, take a good look at my wedding dress. Did you discover anything?" Even after using her entire life, she could not ask it. The person that she wanted to wear the wedding dress for had never seen it in her entire life. She was lost in her thoughts until Luo Tan's cry of surprise rang in her ears, pulling her back to reality. One saw Luo Shuiyan reaching out and slowly taking out the dress from the chest so that everyone could see it. His movements seemed to be very careful, as if he was afraid of breaking it. It was a very bright red, and the silk thread was extremely thin, as if it was made from thousands of thin silk threads interwoven into a brocade. Furthermore, it had been cut by the best embroidery master. A little more would be more, and a little less would be less. Within the bright red cloth, there were fine and dense golden sparks. It was unknown if the golden sparks were scraped off or something else, but the entire cloth seemed to be sparkling. The red robe was made of sea shark brocade. It was as thin as a cicada's wings and had a crimson glow around it. The embroidered red robe shone with a golden light, and the pattern of a dragon and phoenix was embroidered with 12 colored threads. The golden dragon was mighty, and the colorful phoenix was hazy. If one looked carefully, they would find that the eyes of the dragon and phoenix were decorated with tiny black gems. As for the dragon scales and phoenix feathers, they were cut into fine cat's eye stones, threaded with needle and thread, and embroidered stitch by stitch. The red dress and red pants were a single piece. The color was pure, and it was made wide. However, when a breeze blew past, it was as if a celestial was moving, floating like a celestial. However, this was also done with care. There were also lotus flowers embroidered at the corners of the robe, symbolizing auspiciousness. There was no need to mention the xia pendant. There were filaments, inlays, carvings, dots of jade, and hundreds of pearls, which dazzled people's eyes. There was a pouch for grandchildren, a silver deposit, a demon-revealing mirror, and a heavenly official lock. The most attractive thing was still the phoenix coronet. The golden collar of the coronet was decorated with a ring of jewels. The edges were inlaid with gold bars, and the center was inlaid with 12 gems. Each gem was decorated with 6 pearls, and the gems were separated by flower beads. There were 6 fans, and each fan was decorated with a golden dragon, 2 jeweled flowers, 3 flower beads, and a string of beads hanging from the sides. Shun Qiu even foolishly counted. There were 100 colorful gems on the entire phoenix coronet, and countless red gems adorned the phoenix's eyes. Chapter 833. Luo Shuiyan held the heavy phoenix coronet in her hands. She had an indescribable feeling in her heart. Even if Prince Rui was putting on an act, it was really too unexpected for him to be able to do this. This phoenix coronet was the dream of all the females in Mingqi and was not inferior to the Empress phoenix coronet. She anxiously said, "Jing Xing, isn't it a bit inappropriate for Jiao Jiao to wear this phoenix coronet?" The animal on the crown was a phoenix. The phoenix was the king of all birds. Only the queen or the princess could wear it. Even though Shun Miao married Prince Rui and was Prince Rui's consort, she was not at the level of a princess. The crown should be decorated with colorful pheasants. Prince Rui smiled, for rest assured, Imperial older brother knows about this phoenix crown. There are only 2 brothers in our great Liang imperial family. If Jiao Jiao marries into the imperial family, she will only be a member of the imperial family, nothing more than a phoenix. She can bear the responsibility. Shen Xian looked at Prince Rui thoughtfully. Luo Shuiyan still wanted to say something when she heard Luo Tan call out, "Such beautiful embroidered shoes." Luo Tan carefully took out an embroidered shoe from the bottom of the chest and held it in her palm. The embroidered shoes were very small, and they were also red. However, there were small phoenixes embroidered on the shoes. The shoes were small, so it was very difficult to embroider an entire phoenix, not to mention that the phoenix feathers were decorated with tiny gems. However, there was also a pattern on the soles of the shoes. There was also a lotus flower spreading out, implying that every step would bring forth a lotus. At the very top of the shoe were 2 round and large South Sea mermaid pearls. Shen Miao was slightly stunned when she saw it. Southern Sea mermaid pearls were very precious. Because the fishermen could only collect the pearls in the shallow waters, it was not easy to find the pearls in the deep waters. Only the most skillful pearl divers could go to the slightly deeper waters. Even so, it was not easy to find such pearls. Shen Miao remembered that the most favored consort Su Xian only had one and wore it on her head every day to show that she was different. What he didn't know was that there were two of them right in front of him, and they were even casually placed under his feet. If Su Xianfei knew about it, she wouldn't be so angry. Shen Xian was silent for a moment before slowly saying, "You are considerate. This kind of extravagance and such an exquisite wedding dress could be said to be unique in the entire Mingqi. Prince Rui did not need to do this, but he did it. No matter what, when Shen Miao got married, she would not get ridicule but envy." Prince Rui smiled. As long as Jiao Jiao is happy. Shen Miao's heart moved. Looking at that exquisite and beautiful phoenix coronet and that enchanting red embroidered shoes, she thought that if this kind of clothing was worn on her body, it would definitely be extremely impressive. She had never worn such gorgeous clothes in her previous life. In her previous life, when she married Fu Xiaoyi was still young and simple was her daily habit. Later on, when Fu Xiaoyi ascended to the throne, she became a hostage of the Qin state, not to mention any gorgeous clothes. By the time she returned, there was already a beautiful and intelligent Mei Foreign in the palace. Compared to Mei Foreign, she was asking for trouble. Then, as the Empress, she had to dress in a dignified and elegant manner. She had to wear an old-fashioned color and a formal style. She was obviously a young female, but compared to Mei Foreign, she seemed to be much older than Mei Foreign. Thinking about it, her young female period seemed to have completely ended on the night she married Fu Xiaoyi. What followed was painful and forced growth. Was Xie Jingxing sent by the heavens to let her complete the long-cherished wish of her previous life? Shen Miao laughed in her heart. It seemed that some of her regrets, Xie Jingxing had unknowingly helped her to fill them up completely. Perhaps this was also a kind of fate. After the wedding dress, even the picky Xin Xiu had nothing to say. Chapter 834. In all fairness, if it was Xin Xiu, he would not be able to make such an exquisite and expensive wedding dress. Even though he would wholeheartedly give everything that he had to his beloved young lady, but if he could not do it, he would not be able to do it. Prince Rui was able to do it because he was Prince Rui. That was all. Shen Xiu could not help but look at Shen Miao. If Shen Miao followed such a person, it would be a life of glory and splendor. If this Prince Rui's temperament was really as good as today, then Shen Miao's life would be worth it. After talking for a while, Luo Shuiyan warmly invited Prince Rui to stay for meal. Prince Rui did not refuse and smiled, but I want to speak a few words with Jiao Jiao alone. One do not know if Fern will allow it? Shen Xiu immediately became alert. What do you want to speak to, younger sister? It is the same to speak to me. Come, let us go to the courtyard to exchange pointers. Luo Shuiyan pulled Shen Xiu's ear to one side and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? How can Prince Rui spar with a boorish person like you?" Looking at Prince Rui again, her eyes were filled with smiles. Then let Jiao Jiao bring you into the room to speak. Do not speak for too long. It will be time to eat in a while. Shen Miao, Shen Xiu. Mother, do you still remember who is your biological son? The more Luo Shuiyan looked, the more she felt that Prince Rui was not bad. A dignified prince of the Great Liang. To want to speak with Shen Miao, he had to specially ask for her opinion. It could be seen that he was one who understood etiquette. Luo Shuiyan was also thinking of letting Shen Miao and Prince Rui stay longer. Just now she had seen the little movements in the eyes of both of them. Females knew best what females were thinking in their hearts. Shen Miao's appearance clearly showed some interest in Prince Rui. Why did she not see her glaring at Luo Ling, Su Mingfeng and Feng Zixian? This kind of happy little quarrelsome couple should be written in a storybook. Luo Shuiyan happily went to instruct the kitchen. Even though Shen Miao was somewhat speechless, She still looked at Xie Jingxing and said, "Follow me to the courtyard." Shen Qiu also wanted to follow, but Shen Miao turned her head and said, "Eldest brother, you should not go." Shen Qiu's eyes widened in disbelief. "Younger sister. Cousin Qiu." Luo Tan tugged at the corner of his clothes, a young couple whispering, "What is a grown man eavesdropping for?" She looked at the absent-minded Luo Ling. "If you want to compare notes, then look for older brother Ling." Luo Ling recovered to his senses and smiled bitterly, but still said, "If Biao older brother wants to exchange pointers, I will naturally accompany." This was the first time Shen Qiu was rejected by all the women in the room, and he felt extremely wronged. As Shen Miao's future husband, he naturally had to test him properly. How could he, just because of flowery words and a face that could not be seen, clearly deceived females into having good relations with him? Women were indeed easy to deceive. He looked at Shen Xian and said unhappily, "Father, are we just going to let that brat off like this?" Shen Xian lowered his head, and no one knew what he was thinking about. When he heard that, he looked at Shen Qiu, after the meal, spar with him, and test his martial arts. Shen Qiu's eyes lit up as he rubbed his fists and said, "Yes." As expected, Shen Xian was on the same side as him. He must let Prince Rui see clearly that it was not easy to marry the women of their Shen family. Shen Miao brought Xie Jingxing to her own courtyard. Bai Lu and Shuangjiang were outside with the young maids to tidy up the flowers and plants in the courtyard. When they saw Shen Miao bringing a grown man back, they jumped in shock. It was Gu Yu and Jing Zhe who greeted Prince Rui before the maids recovered to their senses and paid their respects. Shen Miao directly brought Xie Jingxing to her boudoir. She was not afraid of being seen by others, as it was not the first time Xie Jingxing came to her room. Every 3 to 5 days he would come over to drink tea and eat snacks, thus she was familiar with the roads of the Shen mansion. When she turned back, she saw Xie Jingxing sizing up the surroundings and could not help but be sullen. "It is not the first time. What is there to look at?" You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.